Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
We're halfway through the week. Good morning from me too. It's a really, really busy morning of breaking news. We've got lots ahead.
Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor.
Against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
At least 7 people are dead after a UPS cargo plane crashed just moments after taking off from an airport in Kentucky.
Lessons in how to spot fake news as schools add AI to the curriculum in the biggest shake-up in a decade.
And at 7:30, we're going to be joined by the Mooch. Anthony Scaramucci is going to be here to break down what the US election results overnight mean for the Democrats, but also politics around the world, including here.
And it's Bonfire night, but a warning for those going to fireworks later about a rise in the number of kids getting burned.
Hello and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Now, we've had some big breaking news overnight. Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor. He's Muslim, he's left-wing, and he says he has 4 words for Donald Trump. Turn the volume up.
Well, the Democrats also won governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia. So is this the first sign of a fight back against Donald Trump? There's so much to talk about on this story and what it means for our politics as well. But first, let's have a recap of all of the action overnight from James Matthews in New York.
This is a show Donald Trump didn't want to see, starring Zoran Mamdani. A supporting cast counted Democrats who won electoral contests across America.
You have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
Thank you for riding the Staten Island ferry.
Mamdani's journey took him from unknown to unstoppable. He is the rising star with a new take on New York and on Democratic Party politics. In a 3-way race, Mamdani flew as the progressive Democrat, promising to tax the rich to cut costs for the rest.
I think we need a generational change in politics, and I think that Mamdani will help usher this generational change.
I think it's nice to hear that, things will be free or things will happen, but it's not only him that can make these decisions.
We can't go any more left with the communism. Now that can't be allowed in New York City.
Could the Mamdani effect that cemented success here do the same for Democrats nationwide? They are a party seeking an identity and a plan for tackling Trump. The Democratic establishment doesn't think Mamdani's left-wing politics will bite beyond the Big Apple.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny.
The Mamdani movement sings from a different song sheet. New York's new mayor used to be a rapper. He called himself Young Cardamom.
The people want to change, we're not content with our Democratic Party.
To Donald Trump, that he should take note that when people unite together, we're gonna pick the right person. I don't know what happened before, but now I think everybody has woken up.
This was a night when Americans had their say on politics under President Trump. A referendum of sorts on 9 months of his presidency. The results aren't what he would have wanted. Beyond New York, Democrats won governor contests in Virginia and New Jersey. And Californians backed a move to redraw voting districts to increase Democratic House seats. It was a blue wave of sorts. Small, but perhaps significant. James Matthews, Sky News, in Queens, New York.
Well, James has been up all night capturing the action and delighted to say he's stayed up for us. Good morning to you, James. There's so many things we could dwell on, but his victory speech was playing just as I came into the office. And I was struck by how authentic and energetic and I guess just genuine he was. The line that stood out for me was when he said, I'm young, I'm an immigrant, I'm a democratic socialist, and I refuse to apologise for any of it. And it's such a stark difference from the Kamala Harris campaign a year ago.
Yeah, hi, Wilf. I think authenticity is a key factor in all of this. I was in his company last night in Queens, his heartland, District 31, which he has represented as an assemblyman. And, you know, he engages well with the crowd, presses the flesh, campaigned from 6 in the morning till late at night every day. So he's a man who connects with the public, a man who has found the message to enable him to connect with the public, particularly the younger demographic. I was at a watch party in Queens tonight, and they're all huge fans because he talks their language. He tapped in to this business of affordability in a New York that is unaffordable, particularly for younger people, can't afford a house, can't afford a mortgage, can't afford student fees, etc. So he has found a formula. It wasn't hard because it's the same formula deployed by Donald Trump before the last election. Affordability, the cost of living, the economy, that was the message that Mamdani pressed home relentlessly, and it resonated with the people, particularly in this city. His difficulty, of course, is how it lands elsewhere. Democrats, the Democratic establishment, they're not sure it will bite the way it has bitten into the Big Apple. So that's something that they have to contend with, how they accommodate him, his support, his success, because they are going to have to. There has been a shift, a small shift perhaps, but a shift in the centre of gravity within the Democratic movement, and it's been a shift leftward because of Mamdani's success. Donald Trump, he has responded. On Truth Social, he had a forward response, and so it begins, he said. Of course, what begins is Trump using Mamdani to beat the Democrats, as a stick to beat the Democrats. He's controversial, Mamdani, because of his past. A staunch critic of Israel, has called for the defunding of the police and so on. And Trump recognises that he's an individual, you know, whose politics don't perhaps translate across to the wider America. His Islamic faith, there are parts of this country where that won't go down particularly well, won't land as softly as it has in New York. So Trump recognises that. And Mamdani, well, in his speech tonight, he said, look, there'll be no room for anti-Semitism in City Hall. I was interested to hear that because clearly he knows where the attack lines are going to come from because he has heard them. Communist, anti-Semitic, which he rejects, you know, insurgent. He's heard that all before. He will hear it again, grand style, from Donald Trump and other Republicans.
Fascinating stuff. James, I'm loving how busy New York is, by the way, at 2 in the morning, like truly the city that never sleeps. I was really interested to hear what you were saying about the Democrats and their relationship with Mamdani. How much do you see this as like a wider Democratic fight back against Donald Trump? Or is this more about one man, one charismatic man in one city?
I think tonight, Sophie, it feels like one man, but it feels like something bigger than just the winning of a big job in City Hall, New York. The Democratic movement at large have to address, as I said, you know, his success. This is an individual who has injected hope into the Democratic movement. I witnessed it tonight at a watch party in Queens. There was real enthusiasm for what had happened. There was a real buzz about the place. Democratic supporters who had little to cheer themselves since Donald Trump won the last election. It's a party suffering an identity crisis. It needs direction. It needs a strategy for taking on Trump. Mamdani has given them a big clue tonight. The challenge will be bringing him on board, channeling his politics in a way that works in New York and far beyond.
James, as always, thanks so much, particularly for staying up late for us. Very much appreciated. One statistic, Sophie, just to finish things off as well. Turnout, over 2 million, the highest since 1969 in this race. So he motivated his base, and that was enough for a healthy victory. By the way, we're going to talk more about this. 7:30, we'll be joined by the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci. He'll be here with us in studio. Really looking forward to that chat to come.
I just want to bring you some more news from the US because at least 7 people have been killed after a UPS, as in the kind of parcel delivery service, cargo plane crashed near an airport in Kentucky.
Images from the scene show a huge fireball erupting as the aircraft hit the ground shortly after takeoff. Our US correspondent David Blevins has the details.
A disaster in motion. Flames emerging from an aircraft moments before takeoff.
I think it's gonna crash, bro.
Eyewitnesses looking on in horror as it exploded.
Holy
The smoke billowing into the sky, signalling disaster in Kentucky.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville, adjacent to our airport.
The debris was scattered over a mile. There had been no harmful cargo on board, but fumes filled the air. The plane laden with fuel for the 4,500-mile journey.
This was a UPS plane that was taking off, getting ready to go all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. So we're talking about over 250,000 gallons of jet fuel that was on that plane. So we're talking about a very, very dangerous situation.
Authorities said they expected the number of dead, injured and missing to rise. At least 2 buildings were impacted, one of them a petrol recycling plant.
We're still going door to door in the area to make sure that every business, every facility, and there's a couple private residences, everybody's accounted for.
The shelter-in-place order initially extended to 5 miles north of the crash site. At Muhammad Ali International Airport, they grounded all flights, staff struggling to comprehend the tragedy.
My heart is with the families, all the community members who work for UPS, the folks who work at the airport and are there every day and are already under so much strain because of the government shutdown.
With no federal budget agreed, air traffic controllers are among those not being paid. That's led to a shortage of them in places and added to concerns about aviation safety. Air accident investigators have the grim task of ascertaining what went wrong on this flight. But these images will rekindle fears that America's skies aren't as safe as they should be. David Blevins, Sky News, in Washington.
Now, kids will be taught about AI and data science and have lessons in how to spot fake news in the biggest schools shake-up in a decade.
So today, a really important review into what's taught in schools has been published. It's all about trying to modernise the curriculum, and we've got a bit of details that we can show you as well. There's some quite interesting changes, I should say, to the curriculum in England. They're getting lessons on spotting fake news. That's in primary schools. Going to be useful for that. There's going to be a reading test for Year 8 and a writing test for Year 6. So the idea, I think, is to try and help spot pupils who need extra support. The government's also looking into a new qualification for 16 and 18-year-olds, all about AI. Well, let's chat to Anjum Pirbakkas, our education reporter, shall we, who can tell us more. What's the idea?
So I think there's a real shake-up in the curriculum, and that's what we've seen this morning in the publication of this document. But what's really interesting is how forward-looking this is and preparing young people, very young children at primary level, to be able to spot fake news, disinformation and misinformation. So that's a really kind of interesting take on helping prepare children as they interact on the internet, and we know that they're doing that at a younger and younger age. So this is really quite innovative in the kind of the changes that are being brought about by the curriculum.
Anjum, you're a former teacher, right? So
yes.
You know exactly what this is like, right? You've been on the front line in schools. How do you think it's going to go down with staff?
I think this is an interesting point that we're at in the education sector. I haven't seen yet how any of this will be funded and resourced, where the training is going to come from for these new specialist subjects in those areas, and that new qualification at post-16 when we're talking about data science and AI. we're struggling to get science teachers in the classroom. So this whole idea of this new subject being offered, I really want to know how the kind of logistics and the pragmatic issues around this will be resolved. It's a really interesting sort of situation that we're at, and a juncture in the sector, definitely.
Well, we're so happy, Andrew, you're here for us this morning. We're going to come back to this story repeatedly, including with Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, shortly. But for now, thanks so much. Now, the issue of worklessness is a really big one. The number of people who are out of work with sickness is what we're referring to. And our political correspondent Tamara is here with more on this, because there's been a big report that once again reveals the scale of this problem.
That's right. Charlie Mayfield, who's the former chair of John Lewis, was asked to look into this for the government. He's produced this report and it really makes bleak reading. I don't want to bamboozle you with numbers, but just a couple. There are 3 million working age people off work sick. That's 800,000 more since the pandemic. And if we don't tackle it, that will turn into another 600,000 more by the end of the decade. So he's calling it an avoidable crisis of economic inactivity. And interestingly, the biggest rise, not the biggest group, but the biggest rise is in young people aged 16 to 34 with mental health conditions. And he says that this is really writing them off for life, because as soon as you're off work for a few months, it becomes really, really difficult to get back to it. What does he suggest the government do about it? Well, he puts a lot of the onus on businesses to support those staff and try and retain them as best they can. And he's going to be launching a pilot with certain big businesses like Tesco and Nando's over the next 3 years to try and work out what to do. But it's going to involve costs for business. They're already grappling with higher taxes and workers' rights legislation. He says those costs will pay dividends. If you keep those people, the economy will improve. But the scale of the problem is huge. And interestingly, the UK is very much an outlier here. In other comparable countries, sickness rates are going down.
What I think so striking about that is, as you said, this was all kind of the catalyst of all of this globally in the developed world was the pandemic. Since the pandemic, most of the other nations have kind of caught a bit of a handle on it, and we haven't. That's the timeline that this has gotten a really big problem, right?
We haven't, and it's really hard to pinpoint the reason. It could be to do with work culture. Certainly the disabled groups who've responded to this point out that a lot of people in long-term sick are in what they call strenuous and insecure jobs. But also, Britain's rate of sick pay is very low internationally, which is also interesting because it's not related to that. So there's potentially a lot of factors at play here, but I think the biggest problem as we head into the budget is this is going to involve cost. Those costs may pay off in the long run, but he's very clear that that is what is involved for businesses.
Really interesting stuff. Tamara, thank you very much indeed. Tamara Cohen there. Now, it's that time of year again, I hope you're ready, where we are all in on Christmas adverts.
I'm very happy for this to start early, personally. I love a bit of build-up to Christmas. So John Lewis is one of the most famous Christmas ads, and they've gone with some 90s nostalgia. I think we can have a little bit of a listen. So we got a little bit of a glimpse of this ad. This one then leads on to the son giving his father a gift that takes him back a decade or so. And the tagline, I think, is very compelling. If you can't find the words, find the gift. So it's a clever one, I think, this year from John Lewis. And it's come 10 days earlier than last year, just showing how much these retailers are under competition to try and fight for those customers. They're earlier and earlier and earlier.
So interesting. As soon as Halloween's over, we're straight into the Christmas ads. Interesting stuff. So we've been talking, of course, about the big breaking story from New York, the kind of charismatic left-wing candidate coming through there. But there's also a really important domestic story today on the curriculum. And look, this is the kind of story that really matters, and it's really important to cover properly because it impacts kids who are going through, shall we say, one of the biggest generational shifts to their employment that we're ever going to see with AI, right? So everything we thought we knew about what kids need to learn at school is kind of out the window. Lots to unpack with our next guest, the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson. It is great to have you on the programme. I want to get into the curriculum review very soon, but first, just to get your reaction to that breaking news we had overnight. Zohran Mamdani, New York mayor, he's a Democrat, he's a socialist, he's described himself as Donald Trump's worst nightmare. I mean, do you think you need to kind of take something out of his playbook over here?
Well, I'll congratulate him on his win. It's obviously up to people in New York to decide who they want to represent him. We'll fight our own election campaign in due course, but I wish him well. It's a wonderful job to have secured election to.
Do you like him? What do you think of his candidacy?
I'll be honest, I don't follow American politics especially closely. I've seen a bit of it online, but he's clearly fought a good campaign if he's managed to secure such support.
Do you really not follow it closely?
No, genuinely. I'll follow the big stories, but not especially.
I mean, some people might say this is quite a big story, though, right? He's the New York mayor.
No, it's a big story. I mean, I'll follow, the activities of the US government. I'll follow what President Trump has to say, but no, I've got. Yeah, as we'll probably come on to talk about. I've got quite a lot to be getting on with.
I got that. I think the thing that's interesting, and we will come to that, this is a guy who's, unashamedly left-wing, right? He's talked about wealth taxes, he's not afraid to ruffle a few feathers, and he's pulled off this big victory. Do you think there are parallels with the Green Party under the leadership of Zack Palansky, who's done very, very well in the polls recently? And do you need to take that threat from the left more seriously?
I do think we need to understand and tell a story in terms of how we'll build that electoral coalition at the next general election. That involves making sure we're pitching to, voters who are looking to parties both to our right and to our left. I think what some of those parties have in common is that populism, really. Some of the kind of easy answers that sound quite appealing but are ultimately not especially compelling. And the Greens will always say, how important it is that we tackle climate change and invest in the future, but actually where it comes to decisions here at home, they'll be the first to oppose, solar power, nuclear, wind farms, building a train line. It's one thing to kind of have a big argument. It's another thing to actually make the decisions and put in place the policies that will actually deliver what it is you claim to want to do.
Do you think we're seeing the same perhaps with Zohran Mamdani, those kind of easy answers then?
I'm not really sure about the analogies between the two, but I think, you do have to look to the Green Party's record at a local level, which is kind of talking green, but actually when it comes down to it, not actually being prepared to do what's necessary.
Right, let's talk the new curriculum, shall we? So this is the biggest overhaul for a decade. What's going on?
So what we're setting out today is the refreshed national curriculum. So it's been more than 10 years since the national curriculum was updated. In that time, an awful lot has changed. You mentioned the way that technology is changing the world, shaping lives, and it's essential that we prepare our young people for that future, a future that I want them to shape. And I think for me, that's about a really strong academic foundation, so reading, writing, and also a push on science. But alongside that, I think what parents want is their children to have a breadth and a richness in terms of what they can study. So the importance of creative and vocational subjects alongside that. And also our young people being really discerning citizens, people who can question and challenge what's in front of them and be well prepared for what comes next.
A lot of these things sound really good on paper, and I think most people would agree with the changes. But what I'm interested in is how easy this is to deliver. I've just been talking to our education reporter, Anjum Peerbach, as a former teacher herself, and she's saying, yeah, it's great to talk about AI, it's great to talk about all these, individual sciences, but where are the science teachers, right? We can talk about all these things, but we've got to have the teachers who know how to spot disinformation, talking to the primary school teachers, or who can teach the new AI qualification. What are you going to do on that?
No, I do acknowledge that how we implement this is almost just as important as the refreshed national curriculum and how we deliver it. So to take the example around science, I want more young people to have the chance to study triple science at GCSE. At the moment, some young people from disadvantaged backgrounds and in certain parts of the country don't have that opportunity. Now, you're right, that does mean we've got to make sure we've got a well-trained and well-supported science teachers. The numbers this year, actually, are really encouraging. We've seen a big increase in people coming forward to train in subjects like physics, and we're also doing more to upskill some of the existing teachers.
There's shortages, aren't there? Right? You acknowledge that. There's a really critical shortage in the number of people going into to train as teachers.
And we're making progress on that, and we've got 2,300 more teachers this year compared to last. But I would just say on the implementation, we don't want to rush this, we want to get it right. So the programmes of study will be out for consultation by 2027 and the national curriculum will be taught by 2020. I do think we should have a core entitlement for all young people that wherever you are, you get a great education.
I haven't spoken to you since you lost the deputy leadership. How are you feeling about it?
I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute, and I really mean that. naturally, disappointed not to win. You don't stand in a contest unless you want to win it. But I do want to congratulate Lucy. I know she'll do a great job.
I did something a little bit cheeky before this interview, and I hope you'll forgive me, because I asked ChatGPT, thinking about the kind of AI things, what your answer would be to this. And it's quite similar. You said you were disappointed not to win, you congratulate the new leader, you keep working hard in government. What's the real answer? You must be, how disappointed were you?
I mean, of course I was disappointed. You don't stand in a contest like that unless you want to win it. But I learnt a lot in that contest. I travelled the length and breadth of the country, met many of our amazing members.
Have you had a glass of wine with Lucy Powell since?
I haven't. No, I've seen her at a Parliamentary Labour Party meeting, but I haven't caught up with her. But the thing I took away from it, from all of that contest, from the conversations I had, was that we do have a chance as a government to really tell a good story about what we're delivering. And actually today, this was a key manifesto commitment, delivering a revitalised curriculum for our young people, and we're delivering it.
There's one other thing that I just want to ask you about very quickly, which is the Charlie Mayfield review. So this is the former John Lewis chairman. He's did a big review into sickness benefit, in particular, the number of people off sick. And he's basically said that we're a complete outlier and that our welfare bill is the highest in the G7 when it comes to this. What's your reaction to it?
So we're really grateful to Charlie Mayfield for all the work he's done on this. He's got a really strong track record in terms of what he's done himself, and that's why we asked him to lead the review. I think what he identifies is that, yes, there is a role for government in how we make sure we've got a system that supports people. Skills is a critical part of that for young people and for adults who want to get back into work, but the crucial role of employers in supporting people with disabilities as well.
OK, always good to have you on the programme. Thank you very much indeed, Bridget Phillipson there, speaking about the new curriculum review.
I know, but don't flag that AI can do jobs for us, because we're going to be out of a job before too long.
That's her answer, not my question.
Yeah, I know,
right.
but it's sort of revealed how exposed we all are. Great conversation there with the Education Secretary. We've got another great conversation coming for you after this short break. We're going to be talking to the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci, about all of the news overnight with Zohran Mamdani's victory in New York. Don't go anywhere.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
There's always more to the news than a headline.
we want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. A reminder of the headlines this morning.
New York has elected its youngest mayor in more than 100 years. The left-leaning Democrat Zohran Mamdani is 34 years old and he's become the city's first Muslim leader.
At least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed during takeoff from an airport in the US state of Kentucky. The UPS aircraft was carrying thousands of litres of fuel when it went down near Louisville Airport.
And children are going to get lessons in artificial intelligence and how to spot fake news. It's the biggest school shake-up in a decade.
We both need to go back and take those lessons, I feel like. More now on our top story. The left-wing Muslim millennial has won the New York mayoral race.
So he's a Democrat candidate, Zohran Mamdani, and he ran on a platform that promised city-owned grocery shops and scrapping bus fares. Donald Trump said if he won, the federal government could withhold funding for New York City.
Minutes after the result, Trump posted on Truth Social, "It begins." Delighted to say we're joined now by the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci. Very good morning to you.
What do you think begins, Wolf? What begins?
Well, this is the big... let's get straight to it. Do you think he's going to genuinely try and hold back funding from New York? Do you think he's really going to make an enemy in practical terms of Mamdani?
Well, first of all, during the shutdown, he's already cut the mass transit stuff, so he's upset the whole municipal bond market. And he's slowing down now the infrastructure redevelopment around the city. So that was already phase one. I think phase two is they're going to want to make the new mayor a punching bag for the left. He's probably a centrist here in the UK if you actually look at the new mayor's policies, but in the United States, they would target him as being hard left. And I think the president wants to use him as a punching bag and a poster boy to try to make the contrast between the conservatives and Mamdani. And listen, I wish the guy well. I live in the city of New York. I did not vote for him, full disclosure. I grew up with Andrew Cuomo, so I supported him. But he's our mayor. I live there. I'm not going anywhere. It's like I tell Spike Lee, you and I are going to shut the lights out on the city. I'm a New Yorker, so I'll be there to work with him and to try to help him to the extent that he wants to help.
I'm interested in your take about how much we should read into this. You know, is this just like one man in New York, a charismatic leader in a city that's Democrat leading, or is this a wider thing? Is this like a wider thing against Donald Trump and the Democrats finally getting their act together?
So, I mean, that's such a great question. I don't think we'll know the answer to that, Sophie, until 2026 or even 2028. Is he a signal or is he just noise? And I think the big generational thing here is that people younger than me feel very upset with the political leadership. They feel the political leadership has failed them. The city is ridiculously expensive. If you're a young person in the city, it's very hard to make ends meet. And Mamdani, like Donald Trump, campaigned on one message. If you really hear Donald Trump, he's saying one thing to the American people: immigration, tighten the border, restrict people, push people out of the country. And that did work for him. What the new mayor is suggesting is affordability. And so I'm not certain that his policies are going to work to make the city more affordable, but that's the number one issue in that city. And frankly, Andrew Cuomo didn't have that message. It was a little muddled.
It's interesting.
He needed a crime and safety message, but he wasn't really speaking to that.
Cost of living is such is in the UK as well. It really feels like it's a huge thing.
Tell us about the way that he connected, because he used a lot of social media. He's young. He's energetic. I mean, we've been using this word as well. He's very authentic. And it's kind of, it gives you a snapshot comparison to a year ago where obviously Kamala Harris didn't have to go through a primary process, was sort of forced upon people. He brought people with him.
Well, he did so many things. He's a very talented guy. You have to just be as honest as possible. He's charismatic. He had a great social media team. He's an improvisational person, which is very, very important for today. When Andrew relaunched his campaign as an independent, he was staring at the camera and talking like a robot and speaking like he was on a teleprompter. And this guy doesn't do that at all. He's just right in there.
We're trying to liven up
fresh
our show
perspective.
and make it less teleprompter.
I should say that our director just said an area you guys could learn from that.
Okay, well,
was that an underhand comment towards us? Yeah, exactly.
But what I enjoy about your social media, Wilf, is you're so tall. All we can see is Sophy. Yeah. Okay, we're catching you at like the mid-chest. And we're able to look at Sophy. Okay, so just keep standing tall.
I'm also
in these social media.
Yesterday, my share just collapsed mid-show as well.
Yeah,
so
I know. All the tricks.
That's happened to me too.
Bring it back to the state of play more broadly in America. And do you think that Donald Trump is still the overriding? Will he win the midterms next year? Keep both houses of Congress or not?
Well, it's because of the redistricting, and not to overly explain that to people, but there's a big local level governmental fight about the proportional nature of these districts. And so if he wins this redistricting argument in Texas and the redistricting doesn't go through in California, he may win the House again. I think he's going to win the Senate if you just look at the numbers. But if you look at his approval ratings, his numbers are down to 37%. He's a minus 13. And so I believe that he'll probably lose to the House. But you have this redistricting going on in the U.S. that hasn't yet been resolved.
The other quick question we had to round things off as well is, come back to New York City. I mean, this story can be framed as socialism, all the wealthy, successful people are going to leave. It's interesting to hear you say quite the opposite. You're committed to New York no matter what?
Well, I'm committed to New York no matter what. I think the one thing that he has to be very careful of is 1% of the New Yorkers pay 48% of the taxes. Huh. So you don't want a migration. There is these funny memes talking about social media. The employee of the month from a real estate agent perspective in Florida is the new mayor, right? Because everyone's saying that people are going to migrate to Florida. I don't think that's going to be the case. I'm certainly not going to do that. But he's got to be careful because, unfortunately, the very wealthy are mobile. And if he starts to tax them in a way that they feel unsatisfied, and just to remind everybody, taxes are a price for services. So if you're delivering the services, clean streets, clean safety, opportunity for businesses to grow and younger people to feel like they're in an affordable place, I don't think anybody's going to leave. There's more cranes in New York City than any other part of the United States in terms of building and growth. So I'm long-term optimistic. We'll have to see how he does. And I wish him well. I didn't vote for him, but I wish him well, and I will help him to the extent that he wants help.
Anthony, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Great. Congratulations on the new show.
Cheers. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Keep him out of the picture, Sophie, on social media. Okay? Just to give you my media tips.
I love it. There you go.
Both actually and metaphorically.
Try and drop your chair down again. That's what we need to do. Thanks so much. It's been great to have you on the show. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think there's much more annoying than when your phone rings, you look at the screen, you've got an unknown number, you think maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your doctor, and then you pick it up and it is a scam. But hopefully the number of those calls that we get could start to go down because the UK's biggest mobile networks are coming together to try and crack down on the scammers. We can bring in our correspondent now, Oliver Whitfield-Miocic. Great to have you with us. So talk us through this. This sounds like good news.
It does sound like good news. So it's a situation loads of us will have been in before. A phone number pops up. It looks like it's coming from a UK number. You pick it up and then it's somebody pretending to be the bank or somebody pretending to have a fantastic job offer for you, or somebody, recently I've had, somebody calling up, have you got damp and mould issues in your house? If so, let us know and we'll sort it out for you.
It's so random, isn't it? I get TikTok. Do you want to earn X amount of an hour and work for these social companies? It's just crazy.
Yeah.
So there's new technology that they're going to employ that they think can stop this, or what's the sort of catalyst for why that we're talking about this?
So what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and stop the call centres that are abroad, which is often where these frauds are committed from using UK numbers, so that when people see a UK number pop up on their phone, they can start to trust it a little bit more, because research shows about 75% of people, if they were presented with a foreign number that was unknown to them, they just wouldn't pick up the phone. And fraud's a huge part of the crime in this country. 41% of all crime in the United Kingdom is because of fraud. Only 14% of it is reported. And disproportionately, it affects older people. So if you're over 65, the losses run to about £4,000 on average.
It's interesting because, when they first said, we can stop these happening in a year, I was like, yeah, right, I heard this one before. But actually, if they can do something like use the tech to change the number coming up, then that does feel like it could have a massive difference.
So it could have a massive difference, but you're right, you have heard it before because the Home Office announced similar plans back in 2023.
I'm not going crazy.
And this is the thing, it's sort of like a cat and mouse game, isn't it? So obviously government will roll out things. We've seen, this isn't something that we've been trying to deal with for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
And then the criminals catch on to it and they find a new trick. So even though the government says AI is going to be used to it's going to be rolled out to try to stop these calls from reaching our phones in the first place, the scammers have still got access to AI themselves. It's just going to go backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So the battle is not over yet.
Great to have you on. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Oliver. Do you not have our boss's number saved in your phone?
Yeah, I do. Don't worry.
Right, 5th of November, which means, of course, thousands of people will be hosting or attending Bonfire Night celebrations.
And look, it's a great night. Yeah, I'm sure lots of people are excited about it as well. But there has been a warning from a children's charity because new data has said the number of kids who've been seriously injured by fireworks is the highest it's been for more than 10 years.
Molly Malone has spoken to a young girl who needed a skin graft after she was hit by a firework when she was 4 years old. Here's her report.
I don't think you stopped eating either whilst we were in hospital.
Rosie May is nearly a teenager. The scar on her neck is from a serious injury when she was just 4 years old. After a firework that went astray hit her while she was watching a display at a friend's house. She needed surgery, spending 5 weeks in hospital. And today, aged 12, she wants to raise awareness of the dangers.
Make sure there's a bucket of sand, bucket of water nearby to stand quite a far distance back in case anything does happen. I don't really like going close to them or being out when it's like bonfire night or sometimes New Year's because there's quite a few on New Year's.
Bonfire night is supposed to be about fun, gatherings of families and friends. But there have long been warnings about the dangers too. In the build-up to bonfire night, 4 times as many children have been seriously injured this year as a result of fireworks compared to last year. It marks the highest number of serious injuries recorded in the same period in more than a decade. Experts say fireworks at home, rather than larger, more organised events, can pose the biggest risk.
The burn service tends to see those that are to the face and to larger areas of the body, which are sometimes as a consequence of misdirected fireworks. In other words, ones that are being used domestically, who are unfortunately misdirected, fall over, shoot into a crowd, and it's frequently those children that are, frankly, closer to the ground that tend to be in the line of fire.
For Rosie May and her family, well, they want people to enjoy and celebrate fireworks season, but be alert as well.
We do urge that people, if they're going to do them, go to a display. It's really important for people to understand the dangers of fireworks, that they are explosive, they're not toys.
While there's warnings, and there always has been, fireworks can be fun and they can be safe, with care and with caution. Molly Malone, Sky News.
It's a huge issue, isn't it? It's going to split opinion as well. I should say at 9:30 we're going to be talking to Mick Sims, who is head of the Lewis Borough Bonfire Society. That's one of the biggest events in the country.
They go big on Bonfire Night.
They go big, which I actually love. But there is a serious side to it too, you know, kids, pets, all that kind of stuff.
For sure. Just in terms of the positives, is this usually a night you go big on and now you can't because you have to go to bed early, or are you still going to go big on it?
I'm disorganised and I do have.
You're
some...
disorganised?
No,
what?
I do have some tips for the weekend. Actually, I quite like Bonfire Night. I've got all those sort of memories of the sort of slightly sketchy letting the fireworks off in the garden and then legging it away. But I guess it is quite dangerous when you think about it, isn't it?
No, for sure. And you've got to be safety first, absolutely. And it's difficult on a Wednesday night, I think, when you've got the early show. But as you said,
I'm going to be well behaved tonight. Don't worry, I'll be well behaved tonight.
And as we said, we'll be talking more about it with a live guest from Lewis at 9:30. Well, coming up next, Checkmate meets Club Night, the event giving chess a modern twist. We're going to play a little bit of chess. Almost, well, I didn't say almost certainly. We will certainly lose against our opponents coming up. We'll be playing live whilst we interview.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Now, chess might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a night out, but a new event is changing that. Nightclub, with a K, is the modern twist, bringing together beats, brains, and a buzzing social scene. Launched in 2023, the club's already drawn hundreds of people per night, mixing DJs, drinks, and the classic strategy game into something that feels fresh, inclusive, and actually pretty cool. Why is that?
Sorry.
Laughing at me?
I actually...
The word cool and Wilf makes Sophie laugh, which I kind of understand.
I love this. I love this. So joining us now are the two people who've set all this up. We're joined by Youssef Natila-Laja and Lucia Enailes-Wika, who are the co-founders of Nightclub.
Welcome,
Great
guys.
to see you here.
Hey, guys.
Lots to talk about. We're going to have a game. Now, full disclosure, I really don't know anything about chess, so obviously need some lessons. Wilf knows...
I think I can remember the rules, but yeah, we're definitely going to lose this game. We have to team up together.
We're going to see how quickly you can beat us.
Okay.
So, yeah, do you want to do... So you start then. You start.
No, why start?
Can I also just say, whilst they start the game, Lucia, one of the things that when I was reading about this, which is great that we've got the game going on in the background, is chess is quite a hard game. And so how do you... and does everyone play whilst being confused and with music going on and drinking going on? It's not what you classically expect with chess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think chess, I don't think actually is as complicated as it looks, as in that you can play it quite simply, but there are also quite an advanced level you can get to. So we have a whole range of people that come to our club. So people who have never played chess before, all the way up to people who play regularly and who are quite advanced. So we have both kind of things going on. But I think it's quite nice. There are definitely chess clubs which are much more competitive than ours. but ours is kind of trying to mix the elements of a social club with music and chess together.
What sort of age group, Lucia, are most of the people that come along? And do you think in your lifetime it's changed? Has it become a cooler thing for young people to do than maybe it was 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think so. So I would say we get people from around 18 to about 30 would probably be average, but there are people who are older than that as well. And I think it definitely has changed. I think maybe the Queen's Gambit had something to do with that in terms of having a bit of a renaissance. But yeah, I think even having more chess clubs like this has encouraged people who haven't maybe had experience with chess before to start playing.
Should we check in, Lucia, on how the game's going?
Yeah.
Can you be our commentator?
I feel
Who's
that...
winning over here?
She's 2 knights down.
Yeah.
I meant to be humble, you said.
But talk to me about how you, because I find this really interesting. Talk to me how you discovered chess.
Well, basically, back in high school in Tanzania, South Africa actually. Our chemistry teacher sometimes didn't feel like teaching class. He's like, oh, you know what, guys, just take some time off, play some chess, and then that's how we learn how to play. So basically, I learned how to play chess through my classmates when I was in high school.
Because I find this really interesting, because we talk about curriculums at school, and one of my big bugbears is that kids don't have space to just learn or to find passions at school. It's all about teaching to the test the whole time. And stuff like learning chess, I mean, it's such a mind-expanding thing. One day, kids, you could be as good at me and actually win 2 pawns. You never know.
Are we gonna get a culmination of this game? How close?
Go for it.
Give me a few more minutes, maybe.
A few more minutes. Keep going. And then, so Lucia, just to sort of wrap things up in terms of, do you feel like this is very helpful for people your age to learn more skills, to develop brain kind of functions, or is it just social? Is it fun?
I think it's both. I think what's really nice about chess is that there's a very strategic element to it. But what's nice as well is that, especially like at nightclub, we have this huge social element. So people come by themselves, they've never been before, and meet some really close friends. So there's that social aspect. But yeah, I think there's something really interesting about chess where you have to kind of really focus your mind and you have to really concentrate, and it's away from a screen. And so I think there's a lot of elements that are really helpful around chess, which is making it really fun game for people to engage in.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a bit more about Nightclub. And I have to say, congrats to Sophie, because I would have definitely lost checkmate by now. So the very fact that we haven't lost yet is a win for us, I think.
It's only a matter of time. Honestly, thank you so much. You've both been like real good sports, and it sounds like a really, really fun thing that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Fantastic. We did not lose.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
A generation of us, so.
Right, more news now, because the former Liverpool player Trent Alexander-Arnold received a bit of a frosty reception at Anfield last night. It was the first time he returned to his former club. The 27-year-old, who of course now plays for Real Madrid, was booed when he came on as a substitute in the 81st minute of the Champions League game. Alexander-Arnold had been with the club since 2004 when he joined the youth academy. He left in the summer. It's sort of particularly spicy, this one, because he left on a free transfer, which annoyed the Liverpool fans, didn't it? Yeah, it did. And he was such a kind of iconic player for them for so long as well. There was some good news, though, because for Liverpool fans, it was light for them, because Alexis McAllister scored the only goal of the match. He headed in the winner, as you can see there in the second half. There had been a bit of controversy earlier on when Slot's side were denied a penalty then.
I mean, I don't have that much sympathy, and I think everyone's sort of thick skins. Alexander-Arnold will get over it, all good on that. But booing, I always just find, on any topic, is sort of rather basic and tedious, and much better just to do what they then did and beat them on the pitch. Yeah. Beat them fair and square. Yeah. And which they did both, I guess. Yeah. So fair enough. Yeah. And congrats to Liverpool after a bad run that they'd had. Right. This, we don't know the answers to. These are news to us. We're talking about how there's going to be a new part of the curriculum for primary school kids to try and spot fake news. And the team have put 3 stories in for us, and one of them is a fake news story. So we're going to have to try and guess as we go through. You please try and guess as well at home.
Yeah, guess at home as well. Right, let's have a look. Politicians announce a mandatory nap hour for all UK workers in a bid to boost productivity and morale. Real or fake? I love this.
I mean, it's got to be fake, but I think they should do that.
I'm up for it. I'm up for it as well. What about this one? Scientists confirm that coffee now officially counts as a meal after years of research. Real or fake?
I think, again, it's got to be fake, doesn't it? But we definitely are fans of coffee on this programme.
We like coffee and naps.
Now, experts recommend swapping crisps for popcorn. They say popcorn is a whole grain, so it's packed with fibre that feeds the good bacteria in your gut, and it's also lighter and far less processed than a bag
That's
of
true.
crisps.
That's definitely true. Popcorn, honestly, if you read what a lot of dietitians say when they're talking about like healthy snacks, popcorn is actually really good.
Even Butterkist.
Well, I think if you
Covered
go for
in
like
toffee.
not so much. Not so much.
Guys, reveal the answers for us. We're going to go with the first two fake, the last one was true.
Yeah.
Are we right? That's what we're saying.
Popcorn's real.
Popcorn's
We're right.
real. Yes.
I
there
knew
we
popcorn.
go.
I actually genuinely
By the
knew
way,
that as well.
I think all three should be true. Naps
Yeah.
should be mandated by the government. Let's become Spanish in that regard. And coffee kind of is a meal.
Yeah, it is a meal, right?
So good work, everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll change policy here and they'll all be true.
Yeah. How's your napping going, Wilf? You're not so much of a napper.
I'm not meant to be. I did have one yesterday, actually, because I had to do something in the evening. But generally speaking, I don't really try to nap because it's harder to kind of then break the cycle again.
It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. We've got lots of news coming up. Of course, the earthquake that happened in New York. If you're someone who doesn't follow US politics that closely, like Bridget Phillipson, by the way, earlier said that she wasn't really a big follower of US politics unless it was a really big story. But if you're not someone who does follow that closely, it's a really seismic moment, wasn't it?
Seismic moment in the US. It was great to chat to Anthony Scaramucci about it. We're also going to chat to Bob Diamond. You might remember him. He's American, but he was the CEO of Barclays. So we'll get a little snapshot of what he thinks it will mean for New York as a financial centre, as one of the biggest economies, of course, in the world in its own right. But we're also going to continue to discuss what it means here. And I'm fascinated. You've got Zack Palansky coming up, which you could almost say Zohran Mamdani's the Zack Palansky of the US or vice versa?
I think you can. Even though, of course, in the US it tends to skew more right. He'd be more centrist, perhaps, than he is here. But it's big news.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, good morning. It is 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Bridget Frost.
Halfway through the week, good morning to you from me as well. Really busy morning, breaking news overnight.
Zohran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor in a big night for Democrats in the US.
Against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
At least 7 people are dead after a UPS cargo plane crashed moments after taking off from an airport in Kentucky.
Lessons on how to spot fake news as schools add AI to the curriculum in the biggest shake-up in a decade.
Coming up, we're going to be joined by the Green Party leader Zack Palansky, asking what the US election results could mean for politics here in the UK.
And it's also Bonfire night, but a warning for those going to fireworks later about a rise in the number of kids getting burned.
Good morning and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. We've had some big breaking news overnight. Zohran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor. He's Muslim, he's a left-wing socialist, and he says he's got 4 words for Donald Trump: turn the volume up.
So the Democrats also won governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia. So I guess the question is this the first sign of a fight back against Donald Trump? There's lots to talk about for this story, what it means for our politics too. First, James Matthews has the story in New York.
This is a show Donald Trump didn't want to see, starring Zohran Mamdani. A supporting cast counted Democrats who won electoral contests across America.
You have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
Thank you for riding the Staten Island ferry.
Mamdani's journey took him from unknown to unstoppable. He is the rising star with a new take on New York and on Democratic Party politics. In a 3-way race, Mamdani flew as the progressive Democrat, promising to tax the rich to cut costs for the rest.
I think we need a generational change in politics, and I think that Mamdani will help usher this generational change.
I think it's nice to hear that, things will be free or things will happen, but it's not only him that can make these decisions.
We can't go any more left with the communism. Now that can't be allowed in New York City.
Could the Mamdani effect that cemented success here do the same for Democrats nationwide? They are a party seeking an identity and a plan for tackling Trump. The Democratic establishment doesn't think Mamdani's left-wing politics will bite beyond the Big Apple.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny.
The Mamdani movement sings from a different song sheet. New York's new mayor used to be a rapper. He called himself Young Cardamom.
The people want to change, we're not content with our Democratic Party.
To Donald Trump, that he should take note that when people unite together, we're going to pick the right person. I don't know what happened before, but now I think everybody has woken up.
This was a night when Americans had their say on politics under President Trump. A referendum of sorts on 9 months of his presidency. The results aren't what he would have wanted. Beyond New York, Democrats won governor contests in Virginia and New Jersey. And Californians backed a move to redraw voting districts to increase Democratic House seats. It was a blue wave of sorts. Small, but perhaps significant. James Matthews, Sky News, in Queens, New York.
I mean, this is such a fascinating story. I mean, it's kind of a political earthquake, really, in the US. What's going on, Will?
Well, the first thing as well is just the scale of this, which we mentioned briefly in the intro. He's the youngest mayor of New York since 1892. He's 34. He's the first Muslim mayor. He's the first mayor born in Africa. There was a record turnout last night relative to since 1969. So it's really quite striking, this victory. I think what really comes across is it shows that energy, authenticity, being unapologetically himself really works. As much as, you know, somebody might say conventionally you don't want to be too far left wing, it doesn't work. And I think that really came across over the course of the last few months and obviously last night itself. Just to mention as well, and James obviously touched it, there was sort of 3 high-profile races and they all went to the Democrats last night. New York City mayor, Virginia governor, and New Jersey governor. They all, in their own separate ways, were quite anti-Trump and obviously won. They also all were very much cost of living focused, and I think that, you know, that is really interesting going forward.
Is this a big? Do you reckon that's a fight back from the Democrats, or do you think it's too early to say?
I think it definitely is.
Yeah.
But you know, 2 of those 3 races you would have expected them to win. Virginia was a flip, was Republican, so definitely a bit of a fight back. I think the lesson compared to 12 months ago is let the best candidate come forward, have a primary race, and let their energy and authenticity come forward in a way that obviously Kamala Harris was sort of forced upon the Democrats as a candidate.
It's really interesting. I'm quite interested in how the UK is reacting to this too, because it's a bit of a dilemma for Keir Starmer, because there are people over in the UK who love the sound of Mamdani, right? They think Starmer should be more like him. But he's described himself as Donald Trump's worst nightmare. And Donald Trump, of course, is the guy who the UK government is trying to get close to and kind of butter up. I just want to show you what happened when I asked Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, about the Mamdani victory, because I think it is actually quite illustrative of this.
I'll be honest, I don't follow American politics especially closely. I've seen a bit of it online, but he's clearly fought a good campaign if he's managed to secure such support.
Do you really not follow it closely? No.
No, genuinely. I'll follow the big stories, but not especially.
I mean, some people might say this is quite a big story, though, right? He's the New York mayor.
No, it's a big story. I mean, I'll follow, the activities of the US government. I'll follow what President Trump has to say, but no, I've got. Yeah, Hasbel probably come on to talk about. I've got quite a lot to be getting on with.
I got that. I mean, does she really not know about what's going on in New York? Or is this a sign that actually it's a hard subject for them to answer on? Do they say, this guy's great, we really like him? Or do they say, no, we think he's too left-wing, he's causing a problem for Donald Trump? So it may be the fact that she's just saying, I just don't know anything about the US is a signal for how hard it is to answer the question.
I'm certain of one person that's going to have been watching and be celebrating this result. You're speaking to him imminently.
Zack Palansky, leader of the Green Party. Is he the British Mamdani?
We shall see, and I think very similar messages and similar approaches as well in terms of that authenticity and just speaking your mind. That's coming up in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Sophie's chat with Palansky. Now, more news first of all, though, from the US. 7 people have been killed at least after a UPS cargo plane crashed near an airport in Kentucky.
So images from the scene show a huge fireball erupting as the aircraft hit the ground shortly after takeoff. Our US correspondent David Blevins has the details.
A disaster in motion. Flames emerging from an aircraft moments before takeoff.
I think it's gonna crash, bro.
Eyewitnesses looking on in horror as it exploded.
Holy
The smoke billowing into the sky, signalling disaster in Kentucky.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville, adjacent to our airport.
The debris was scattered over a mile. There had been no harmful cargo on board, but fumes filled the air. The plane laden with fuel for the 4,500-mile journey.
This was a UPS plane that was taking off, getting ready to go all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. So we're talking about over 250,000 gallons of jet fuel that was on that plane. So we're talking about a very, very dangerous situation.
Authorities said they expected the number of dead, injured and missing to rise. At least 2 buildings were impacted, one of them a petrol recycling plant.
We're still going door to door in the area to make sure that every business, every facility, and there's a couple private residences, everybody's accounted for.
The shelter-in-place order initially extended to 5 miles north of the crash site. At Muhammad Ali International Airport, they grounded all flights, staff struggling to comprehend the tragedy.
My heart is with the families, all the community members who work for UPS, the folks who work at the airport and are there every day and are already under so much strain because of the government shutdown.
With no federal budget agreed, air traffic controllers are among those not being paid. That's led to a shortage of them in places and added to concerns about aviation safety. Air accident investigators have the grim task of ascertaining what went wrong on this flight. But these images will rekindle fears that America's skies aren't as safe as they should be. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Now, children in England will be taught about AI and also data science, and they're going to have lessons on how to spot fake news. It's the biggest shake-up of the school curriculum in a decade.
Today, an important review into what is taught in schools has been published in an attempt to modernise the curriculum. So there are some interesting changes, and we can take you through them now. Children in primary school will be taught how to spot fake news and identify misinformation and disinformation.
There's going to be a new reading test in Year 8 and a writing test in Year 6, and the government says it's going to help try and get support to kids who need it.
The government's also looking into a new qualification for 16 to 18-year-olds in AI and data science. Well, Anjum is here to tell us more about this. Anjum, just give us the background. This is, excuse me, has been brewing for, coming out for a while. And what are the headlines that jump out to you?
So the fact that primary school children will be taught to spot fake news is huge. I think it's really innovative and forward-looking and forward-thinking, especially when we know now that children are using the internet and technology at a much younger age. So to equip them with those skills is really going to be useful for them. The idea of critical thinking and critiquing what they see and what they're exposed to online is also a way of keeping them safe, which is something that I think is definitely needed. But what's also interesting is this inclusion of new tests and new exams. In the same line, they're also saying that they're going to look at reducing exam time. So there seems to be a little bit of a contradiction with the introduction of Year 8 reading tests, which are going to be compulsory and kind of blanket, and that writing test in Year 6 again, in addition to already SATs that take place at the end of Key Stage 2.
I feel a bit sorry for them. It's like Year 8's from that few periods where you don't have a test, right?
Yeah.
And now I've got another test coming in.
And it just seems like their learning journey is kind of interrupted or constantly kind of benchmarked with these exams. And I think learning should be so much more than that.
Just very quickly on mortgages, that's interesting as well. They're going to be more kind of financial literacy.
So there's financial literacy that's being introduced much lower down. So children in primary school will be introduced to things like mortgages, but also how money is kind of used in a way that's going to equip them for kind of adult life and later life, because they operating with money much earlier on now and much younger.
Anjum, really great to have you on that. We're going to continue talking about this all morning. The identifying fake news thing, Sophie, all jokes aside, I think that is it's great. I kind of want to see what the pointers are. But either way, more broadly, if people are more sceptical of kind of online content generally as they grow up, it's going to be really good.
Agree.
Now, the issue of worklessness is a really big one. The number of people who are out work with sickness is what we're talking about here. Tamara's here to break down what we're coming. This is a big review that the government commissioned, and it was a sort of theme that sadly we were all aware of. The scale of it is being brought home.
The scale of it is huge. This is a review by Charlie Mayfield, who's the former chair of John Lewis, who the government asked to look at this. And he says that economic activity is an avoidable crisis. 1 in 5 working-age adults is not working. 3 million of them are sick. There's been a really big rise since the pandemic of 800,000. And if it's not addressed, that will rise by another 600,000 by the end of the decade. So he says measures really urgently need to be taken, particularly to help young people, because although older people are more likely to be off sick, the biggest rise has been in people aged 16 to 34 with mental health conditions. And he really puts the onus on employers to do more to retain those staff. He's launching a pilot which will take 3 years with big companies like British Airways, Nando's and Tesco to try and help them keep people who have various conditions in work. But the suggestion really is that businesses have to do more, although many of them are grappling with higher taxes and workers' rights legislation. But the reason this is such a puzzle is because internationally, Britain does stand out because other comparable countries have seen sickness go down. We've seen it go up, but the cost to addressing it could run into the billions, although he says that will pay off because the economy will benefit from it.
Tamara, can you just remind us where we are on the benefit stuff? Because obviously the government tried to get through the reforms, they failed. There's been an awful lot of stuff about getting down the sickness benefits bill. What's the latest?
That's right. So Labour MPs rejected the proposals. The government still want to have another go, particularly at sickness. They did actually manage to get some measures through on universal credit sickness benefit, which will be cut in half for new claimants. They do want to go further. They won't be able to go further on a big benefit called PIP because that's being reviewed over the course of a year. So they're kind of stuck for a year while that's being looked into. They do want to have another go, particularly for younger people, because they feel they can make the case more strongly there that younger people should be in work. But I think the concern of a lot of Labour MPs is there aren't that many jobs out there and you may be taking benefits away from people who aren't realistically going to find work. But the bill is absolutely staggering, looking to get to £100 billion in the coming years.
Tomorrow, great stuff as always. Thanks so much for that. Now, before Sophie's interview coming up with Zack Palansky, just want to remind you what's coming up at 1:30 on mornings with Ridge and Frost. We're going to be speaking to the former head of Barclays, Bob Diamond, about how Wall Street might be reacting to that newly elected New York mayor, and also a preview of what might be to come on the budget here.
Now, Zohran Mamdani's win overnight in New York is in part because of his ability to relate to younger voters, galvanising supporters through social media. And look, that kind of slick, modern campaigning style, the kind of authenticity, I guess, is something the leader of the Greens, Zack Palansky, is leaning on to grow his party here in the UK. And I'm delighted to say that he's right here with us now. I'm so happy to have you on today because I think there's an awful lot of interesting stuff to talk to relating to New York. I'm just going to ask about your poppy first. What's the poppy about?
Well, the red poppy is for remembrance and the white poppy is for peace. And I think it's important both to reflect back on history but also look to the future and say this is a time to talk about peace and diplomacy too. Right,
let's get your thoughts on Zohran Mamdani's win in New York. What are the lessons?
Well, I feel like I'm grinning from ear to ear because, first of all, I think it just feels like a delightful moment where hope has triumphed. And although that's about New York, I think it's also about improving people's lives, both in America, but that's what we need to do right across England and Wales. And I think what Zohran really did was connect with the lives of ordinary people, mobilise young people, and it wasn't just about social media. I think that sometimes it becomes about the communication style. He's undoubtedly an incredible communicator, but actually I think it was about the policies. It was a relentless focus on inequality, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
This is the thing that's interesting, isn't it? So he's a left-wing socialist. He's been unafraid in taking on the right. He's been very critical of Donald Trump. He wants to tax millionaires. Are you the British the British Mamdani?
Well, he's much cooler than I am, and I think it's important to know where your coolness lies. But actually, what I do entirely intend to do is the same relentless focus on inequality.
You're modelling yourself a bit on what he's done. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's interesting. We were roughly doing it at the same time, actually. So I think this isn't about one person's learning from another, but I think the left more generally around the world are going absolute solidarity with minority communities, with trans people, with migrants. But actually, the problems that are facing them more than anything is inequality. And inequality faces all of us, other than multimillionaires and billionaires. So let's talk about what we have in common and make sure we take the fight to the right.
The Democrats were sceptical about him, but he's won in New York and he's won big. Do you think that you could be the next Prime Minister?
I think it's not for me right now about a focus on being Prime Minister, and that's not avoiding the question because I want to answer the question really directly. My focus right now, though, is making sure we get 30, 40, maybe even more MPs at the next general election. Now, that was what I was saying a few weeks ago. Since I've said that, I've been elected about 2 months today. We've over doubled the Green Party membership. We've had a poll where we've overtaken the Labour government. So to answer your question directly, things are changing rapidly for me and the Green Party, and now 30 to 40 MPs is starting to look unambitious. I can't give you an exact number yet because we've got to go away, work the numbers and go, actually, if we keep growing at this pretty much exponential rate, what are our ambitions at the next general election? But right now, that isn't being Prime Minister. It's just making sure we get as big a block of Green MPs as possible.
You say that 30 to 40 MPs looks unambitious for you? And I know you don't want to put a number on it, but can you give me a bit of a sense of what is the sort of target? What are you looking for? Are you looking to enter a coalition or to be part of a government or to get over 50 MPs? What is it?
So we definitely want to hold the balance to power, because actually, ultimately, what I want for this country is to make sure that we are taxing wealth more than we're taxing work. I want to make sure we have action on the climate crisis, and I want to bring in proportional representation.
What does hold the balance of power mean? Does that mean you would go into, say, a coalition with Labour or a supply and demand? What do you want to do?
Well, again, most politicians would say, I'm not going to answer that question right now, but you're asking me a direct question, so I'll give you a direct answer. I wouldn't go into coalition with Keir Starmer. This is a man who has perpetrated an ongoing genocide in Gaza. He ran on the coattails of Jeremy Corbyn, and I would say he ditched every single pledge he could. So I think the man's proven to be untrustworthy. However, I don't think he'll be Prime Minister at the next election. So it's very difficult for me to predict what a relationship between the Green Party and the Labour Party look like until I know who the future leader will be.
So what about Nigel Farage then? Are you saying that you might do a deal with him?
No, there's no way I'd do a deal with Nigel Farage.
So if you're looking at Labour, would a condition be, so I know I'm jumping ahead on all those things, but things have changed. Like you said, your ambitions have changed. Are you thinking that, one of your conditions would be a different leader of the Labour Party, for example, that you felt you could work with?
I'm not sure it'd be for the Green Party leader to demand who Labour led with, but I think Labour membership and people who are thinking about voting Labour in the past are increasingly voting with their feet and moving over to the Green Party anyway, as well as lots of ex-Tories who are joining the Green Party. It's interesting. Often the phenomenon is that we're just getting disillusioned left-wing voters. But actually, there's lots of people who are looking at Kemi Badenoch and going, I care about basic things like science and like decency, and actually those values lie in the Green Party too.
You gave a speech last night on climate change, and of course we've got the COP conference kicking off this week, the big climate conference. Do you have any high hopes for it, or are you or not?
I don't have any high hopes for it at all, but what I do have hopes, because that's the number one thing we have to do, is that we can sort out the climate crisis. We're in the crucial decade of action. We had the UN Secretary General just a week or two ago say we're going to overshoot some of those vital targets, and it barely made a headline. And I think that's because we've all been paralysed into this kind of fear and doom-mongering of there's nothing we can do about it. We hold agency and power, and when I say we, I'm talking about the country and the government. If we make sure that the polluter pays, we need to hold fossil fuel companies accountable. It is outrageous that we've just had a hurricane in Jamaica that has killed people and caused mass devastation. Why are we calling it Hurricane Melissa? It should be called Hurricane Shell. Or at this point, it should be called Hurricane Labour, because actually we still have a Labour government who are giving fossil fuel subsidies to oil and gas rather than subsidising things like they should be, like train travel.
Look, I understand entirely how passionately, the Green Party is supporting these climate arguments. But the hurricane in Jamaica killed people, right? It devastated people's homes. And you're saying it should be called Hurricane Labour. I mean, that's quite incendiary, isn't it? We've seen, protests against Labour MPs. We've seen people having, panic alarms. And you're saying that the name of a hurricane should be the Labour Party.
Well, let's be clear about what is incendiary. The Labour Party right now aren't refusing to rule out the Rosebank oil field. This is a new oil field where the cumulative carbon emission impacts will be the same as 28 of the poorest and low-income countries in the world. This is sociopathic behaviour if they don't rule it out. So I accept that what I'm saying is strong language, but we need to have stronger language about the climate crisis. It is killing people. Now, are the Labour Party fully responsible? Absolutely not. The fossil fuel companies are responsible, and that's why I've said that. But they are still subsidising those fossil fuel companies, and there are consequences to the decisions that the government make. And so what I'm saying, I don't doubt people like Ed Miliband, for instance, really understand this issue and they care about it deeply. But at what point are you still expanding aviation and expanding runways and not recognising your impact that you're having on the planet and the destruction of the planet?
You don't fly on planes, you don't drive, you're a vegan. I'm just interested to say, if you were UK Prime Minister and you were asked to attend COP, which presumably means getting on a plane, what would you do?
I would go, because that would be a different circumstance. But I also always want to say to people that I don't fly and I don't drive and I'm vegan because I'm Green Party leader and I have the power and the privilege to make those choices. But none of it is about that. It's not about individual responsibility. It's straight back to the last conversation we're having. This is about government and big business making that system change rather than pointing at individuals.
So you're not trying to be holier than thou, basically?
Absolutely not.
What's your kind of vice? You must have a little, ungreen...
Do you know what? You asked me that last time when I was on the show, and I thought, I wish I had a better answer.
You must have something.
I mean, I love chocolate, but obsessively so. Vegan chocolate, obviously.
I don't think
and
that
as I'm
counts.
putting on the weight, I'm thinking I should probably put that
I don't think that
to one side.
counts, I have to say.
I'll work on a better one for next time.
Right, thanks very much. Zack Palansky. Palansky there, leader of the Green Party.
Wow. I have lots of takeaways, two really big ones. The first one, you started that, obviously with Zohran Mamdani in mind, and we've been talking all morning about the authenticity of Mamdani. Absolutely a comparison to be made there.
Yeah, there is.
Do you know what? And for our jobs, the best authentic part of it is answering the questions.
Yeah, I know.
I've thought this for ages, that if you stick to these PR prepared comms answers, it's not helping them. It's hurting politicians that do that. People want authentic. They can see through the answers that are pre-prepared and not being answered. And it comes across so well. And you ask some really tough questions to predict forward to being Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Normally they'd be like, gosh, I can't possibly go there.
I thought it was really interesting. He basically said that now 30 to 40 MPs, the Green Party is unambitious at the next election. I cannot tell you what a transformation of our kind of electoral maps that would be if that's unambitious. And also that he wants to hold the balance of power in the next government.
And that was my second big takeaway. All of those questions were absolutely spot on. But
thanks, Will.
No,
nice, isn't he?
but if we had discussed that 2 weeks ago, we would have thought it's mad to ask.
It's true.
It's the momentum is crazy. And again, that brings back to Mamdani a bit. It's kind of like Mamdani 6 months ago before he got the Democratic nomination. Yeah. And, it's amazing how quickly the questions you would ask him have drastically changed and it not sound ludicrous.
Yeah, it actually doesn't. Yeah. It's true. Well, there's a lot of news today. If you're heading out to work or on the school run, better get cracking if you're on the school run, by the way, not long to go. But don't forget, you can get up to speed on the day's top stories with our new Cheat Sheet podcast.
The QR code is on the screen right now for you. If you haven't subscribed, please do. Of course, 5 stories in 10 minutes. We do the work so you don't have to. It's in your feeds by 6 a.m. every morning.
So up next, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest overhauls to the school curriculum, lessons on how to spot fake news, AI. We're going to tell you all about that coming up next.
I'm Stephen Murphy and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, welcome back. Lots of news for you this morning. New York has elected its youngest mayor in more than 100 years. He's only 34. Left-leaning Democrat Zohran Mamdani has also become the city's first Muslim leader.
At least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed during takeoff from an airport in the US state of Kentucky. The UPS aircraft was carrying thousands of litres of fuel when it went down near Louisville Airport.
And children are getting lessons in artificial intelligence and how to spot fake news. It's the biggest curriculum shake-up in a decade. There are also plans to cut GCSE exam times by up to 3 hours per student.
Now, at the start of the week, it seemed like the scandal engulfing Andrew Mountbatten Windsor would dominate Prince William's week in Brazil for the climate conference known as COP. But the Prince of Wales has stayed firmly on the task in hand. He's in Rio for his annual Earthshot Prize, and tomorrow 5 climate entrepreneurs will be awarded £1 million to further develop their idea.
So the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is going to be joining William at that event, and then they're going to be gathering with world leaders at the COP30 summit in the city of Belém. Well, let's speak to our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills. She's in Rio for us. Rhiannon, do you think he's managed to, I guess, shake off the difficult domestic story?
Do you know what? It was always going to be potentially a difficult one, but yeah, look at this setting, and I think that has really kind of helped Prince William this week. We've seen him ticking off all the big, iconic locations around Rio. He's also here, of course, to focus on a subject that really matters to him, and that is the environment. But I think it's been helped by the fact that we've had that great picture as well. We had him, I don't know, kicking a penalty at the Maracanã. We had him up Sugarloaf Mountain, playing a bit of volleyball as well. And yesterday, of course, I suspect in some of the papers today, him hugging a baby as well. That always helps on a royal walkabout. Today, though, the big focus, though, is on his Earthshot Awards because they take place this evening. If you haven't heard of them, it's basically his attempt, really, to inject some optimism into the whole climate debate. What he wants to do is really reward those who are coming up with some of the most innovative solutions when it comes to tackling some of the worst environmental issues that we face at the moment. All of those finalists are up for huge prizes, £5 million each, and they've got an amazing start to the day as well. We are all heading up to Christ the Redeemer. If you've ever looked at pictures of Rio, you can't miss that as an icon. They've kept the crowds away this morning for all of us to head up there. William will meet the finalists to really kick off the day, and then this evening they all hit the green carpet with him alongside the likes of singers Kylie Minogue, Shawn Mendes, as you mentioned, also the Prime Minister Keir Starmer, hoping that in what is really it's such a pivotal week when we're talking about the environment, with COP coming up in the next couple of days, all those world leaders heading to Belém, trying to inject that element of optimism in what could be quite a pessimistic week when it comes to the climate crisis.
You've been talking about the amazing pictures and backdrop for all of what he's been doing. I mean, seriously, look at this backdrop you've got, and thank you for getting up us early.
I feel like I should get out of the way. I feel like I'm in the way of it.
No, you're definitely not. You're definitely not. You're making it even better. And by the way, I'm also, because it's so early there, I was fearful it would still be dark, but obviously sunrise is relatively early. It looks fantastic. But it brings me back to a key point on this, which is your assessment, Rhiannon, on how he's managed to not have the scandal here follow him. Is it because of great picture, or is it because all they've given us is picture and not allowed you and your colleagues and peers out there to fire questions at him? I guess central to this question is, do you think the King has drawn a line under this matter with the action he took late last week over the weekend, or not?
Yeah. Look, I think what the King did in some ways was a huge... Well, it was a favour to William, but it certainly helped heading into this trip. The fact that we saw that Prince title taken away from Andrew, we saw his home taken away from him. Ultimately, the royal family have now done everything they can in terms of facilitating that further fall from grace that people wanted to see. yeah, we don't necessarily get to kind of probe the royal family in the way that you guys would probe MPs and politicians. But I think the royal family have been so mindful that, look, they had to do something. That was all of the briefing that I was getting, was that they realised these were really serious allegations, and they looked at public opinion, and something had to shift. And that's what happened last week. Of course, there was so much discussion about how much was Prince William involved in kind of encouraging his father to do that. All of the briefing that we're hearing around that is that actually Prince William was just very supportive of his father at what's a really difficult time. But yeah, I think also what William is trying to show this week is this sense of himself as a global leader. We've seen that this week. He's there. To be honest, meeting people is more important to him than probably politicians. But he will probably be one of the most high-profile figures we will see in Belém at COP tomorrow. And he knows that showing vital leadership is really important at this moment.
Rhiannon, thank you very much indeed. I hope you get a little bit of time in that busy day to enjoy the beautiful place where you are. But good to have you on the programme.
We'll try.
Now, greater focus on financial literacy, climate science and skills to identify misinformation are just some of the big changes being proposed in the national curriculum in England.
So it's a really big shake-up of schools, and it's all part of the government's plan to try and help critical thinking and also, of course, keep children safe online. Pupils are also, this is quite interesting, they're going to learn about mortgages and how to budget right from primary school as well. So, our next guest, Professor Becky Francis, who's from the Education Endowment Foundation. She led the independent curriculum and assessment review. Great to have you with us. Just talk us through what you're trying to do.
Good morning, Sophie and Wilf. Well, the review represents an enormous amount of work over the last year, gathering that evidence, sifting it, and then balancing decisions. But if I had to sum it up, I'd say it's about standards, space, and future success. It's about standards because for too long, high standards has really meant high standards for some young people and depended on social background. We want high standards to be high standards for all. It's about space because we want to ensure that the national curriculum doesn't exceed its limits and that there's space for schools to do all the amazing stuff that they do beyond the national curriculum, you know, those performances, the work experience and so forth that build young people's confidence and bring the curriculum to life. And it's about successful futures because we want to refresh the curriculum and make it cutting edge for the present day, introduce some of that knowledge and skill that you mentioned, that protection against misinformation, media and financial literacy, and really make sure that the curriculum is fit for the future.
How needed was this refresh in the curriculum? Were we behind the curve, you know, talking about a new AI course? I think, you know, we've got computer science already. Were we drastically in need of a refresh, or have we been relatively okay at keeping things up to date in the last decade or two?
Yeah, to reassure your viewers, actually, we've taken a view of the international evidence, and we think that the curriculum and assessment in England is in a pretty strong place overall. But it's over a decade since it was last refreshed, and so some areas do need that revitalisation and bringing up to date, and other areas we want to go harder on and make sure that we make real improvement. As I've said, too many young people are left behind based on social background in this country, and we've taken measures to try to address that and make sure that high standards are for all our young people.
Obviously, everyone believes in high standards for all our young people, but I guess my question is, do we need to, you know, get real on this? You know, we're talking about AI qualifications when we have a shortage of teachers. You know, we're crying out for science and maths teachers, let alone people who can teach kids about the threats of AI and the opportunities of AI. You know, we're talking about having, you know, a curriculum that's broad-based, that's for all. But if you look at like funding for things like art equipment, for things like music, I mean, we're talking about like hundreds or, you know, a couple of thousands of pounds for some schools. I mean, I just don't, the ambition I can see, but I just think the reality in delivering this is going to be hard.
You're absolutely right, Sophie, to identify, capacity issues in the system. I would say that the AI qualification is separate to our review. We're focused actually mainly on pre-16 subjects, and then we look at post-16. We're focused on vocational qualification, actually. But in terms of the issue of AI, obviously it infuses young people's lives and increasingly all our lives. Much of the work that we've been looking at is actually about how to guard against its effects, of course, in terms of exam reliability, assessment, and young people's daily learning. So I think we're at a real sort of cusp point in relation to our human relationship with AI, and we've been thinking about that in the review. You're right that computing is super important. We've taken steps to refresh that area of the curriculum and bring, as you said, those digital skills and so forth earlier into primary school experience as well. Because as parents will know, those risks of online harms, digital transactions and so forth are so critical now to all young people.
Professor Francis, just very quickly, we're nearly out of time, but this financial literacy aspect to go into the curriculum, is that a big shift or just around the edges?
It's really building on what was there, but one of the key things that we're doing is making this mandatory in the primary school through the citizenship curriculum and bringing that into the national curriculum to make sure that it's an entitlement for all young people.
Really interesting. Professor Becky Francis, thanks so much for joining us.
Right, we are talking now about scam calls on your phone. That whole thing when your phone rings, it's an unknown number, and it's someone trying to say that you've got a load of money in your bank account or that there's a great new job waiting for you. And if it's too good to be true, it basically is too good to be true. But we're hoping that those calls could start to go down because of action by some of the UK's biggest mobile networks.
And Oliver's here to tell us exactly about this. So these networks they've come up with a new way, they think, to reduce scam calls?
Yeah, so basically a lot of the time when you get a scam call, it'll come up with a UK number on your phone. You're more likely to pick up an unknown UK number than what you are an international unknown number, but a lot of these call centres are based abroad, and that's where the vast majority of this fraud is happening, and it comes at a huge cost to the economy. So what the mobile operators are trying to do is to block the calls and block these call centres from pretending that they've got a UK number. It's a process called spoofing.
To be honest, it sounds like a bit of a no-brainer. When I first heard the story, I was like, that's never going to happen. They're never going to be able to eliminate this in a year. But actually, you're right. If it's a foreign number, then I think most people would be much less likely to pick it up.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, how many times have you been tricked into it? I know personally, I feel sort of a bit had when you fall for it, and you just the things that they come up with are just so preposterous, aren't they? Have you been involved in a car accident? No.
Well, do you know what? Is the data backing up my family's experience in this, which is there's a generational aspect to this.
Yeah.
I'm afraid my mum kind of falls for some of these things quite often, but we might answer the calls we get coming in, but if someone says to us, "Can I have your bank details because I'm going to pay you £3,000?" I mean. No. You're unlikely to fall for it.
So there is a stark difference in the data. So in the over 16 category, 16% of people have been targeted by a scam call and fallen for it. When you look at the over 65s, 3 in every 5 people have been targeted. And some of the losses are huge, £4,000 on average.
It's awful.
And the other problem that we've got is that Action Fraud was set up, it was meant to be run by the City of London Police, it was meant to be the one-stop shop that people would go to, they get their problems sorted. And it's just not being seen as being fit for purpose. And that replacement that was meant to come in has been delayed and delayed and delayed.
It's a really big deal. And like you say, for us it might be an annoyance, but for some people it is also, because it's much more sophisticated in some cases than we think as well. Always good to have you on. Thanks very much for being on the programme this morning.
Thanks very much, Oliver. Right, to come after the break, we'll be speaking to the former CEO of Barclays, Bob Diamond. You might remember him. He is also American, so perfectly placed to talk about the Zoran Mamdani victory and to look ahead to Rachel Reeves' budget. We'll be right back.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country. It's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
We're rolling. I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Welcome to the world.
Come along for the journey. It'll be fun.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? This is the war game.
There were a number of armed security.
We want to discover, to find out what's really going on.
Everything you need to know about British politics in about 20 minutes. I actually don't like political drama.
So, where next?
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin. The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks. If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach.
This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Welcome back to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. More on our top story now. Zoran Mamdani will be New York City's new mayor, and in his victory speech to Donald Trump, he said, "Turn the volume up." The Democrats also won the governor elections in New Jersey and Virginia. So is this the first sign of a fight back against Donald Trump? And what does Mamdani's victory mean for New York City as a financial centre? Delighted to say we're joined now by the former CEO of Barclays, Bob Diamond, who is, of course, also an American, so perfectly placed to answer some of those questions. Bob, very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Wilfred, good to be here, and congratulations on all you're doing.
Oh, well, you're very kind to mention it, but much more important that we talk to you. And on Mamdani, it was interesting, we spoke to Anthony Scaramucci an hour ago, and he, maybe I was a bit surprised by this, very clearly said, "I'm not leaving New York. I love New York." Will that apply to all bankers in New York City, or is there a threat with some of the more left-of-centre policies that Mamdani holds?
I mean, I think we'll have to see this play out. I don't think there's going to be a knee-jerk reaction. I compare and contrast in some ways. First of all, New York is on fire. I mean, the city is really doing well. COVID was difficult. I think very challenging with people working from home and less people in the offices. But, you know, I walk into work down Park Avenue or Madison Avenue in Midtown every day. It's absolutely packed. There's new restaurants coming every week. So I think New York is in a very, very good position. It's a democratic city. It's a democratic state. So this isn't a big surprise. We had two Democrats really running against each other. And I compare and contrast Wilfred a little bit to London in its heyday. Mm-hmm. We had Red Ken Kingstone, and people were pulling their hair out when he was elected about the financial center in London. But it was like, I think it was from 2000 to 2008, it was the heyday of London in financial services. So, you know, I think that New York is far bigger than just a mayor.
In terms of whether it broadens out, I guess, is also, to your point about Ken Livingstone as a mayor, and Mamdani's got more powers, but he's not the governor and he's not the president. Would that sort of candidate on a more national scale be a blow for the US economy? Or are we seeing actually that this sort of authentic approach is what people want?
I think what we're seeing politically is slightly different than that, but I think you're on the right point, is we're seeing people from the far right and the far left. And I think most of us yearn for the day when people are moving toward the middle and making compromise and making decisions. So I think politics continues to divide people in the U.S. for sure. I think these elections in Virginia, in New Jersey, in New York, the Democrats will hail it as 3 victories, but keep in mind that those 3 states all voted for Kamala Harris. Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to be more of the same. We're still a divided country in terms of our politics. And I think too divided, I'd like to see us come closer to the center and come closer to working together.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the situation here. Big speech from Rachel Reeves yesterday, as we were just discussing off camera a little bit. Widely it's being interpreted, we don't know yet, of course, what's going to come in the budget, but widely it's being interpreted as that tax hikes are coming and that, in fact, she might break a manifesto promise and hike something like income tax, pull one of the big tax levers. If we are in a place where taxes have to go up, and maybe we'll come back to that if, is it better from the banker's perspective, from the economist's perspective, to break a political promise and pull a big lever rather than some of the long tail of smaller taxes that you could approach?
I think it's a slightly different issue. And I know Simon French of Panmure Liberum, one of our portfolio companies, comes on this show with you. I thought he had a terrific article earlier in the week ahead of the Chancellor's speech. And I think, we always have to balance borrowing, which, the gilt markets would say no more borrowing, with cutting spending and raising taxes, and it always should be a mix. And I think the city is supportive of the Chancellor, but I think the Chancellor has a hard time getting any spending cutting through her own party. And that's the real fundamental issue here, is you have a party with a very strong majority that's not supporting the decisions that I think the Chancellor would be making on more of a balance. And there's always been a balance over the years, for decades. When challenges like this come up, do you reduce spending or do you raise taxes? And it always needs to be a blend of both. I know under Osborne, it was always kind of that 80-20 rule of cut spending and raise taxes. And I don't think it's 80-20, 40-60. That's not the issue. The issue is there needs to be a plan that balances both. And I think the Chancellor has really struggled to get any support from her own party for cutting spending.
Stepping back more broadly, you left Barclays, I think, 2012.
2012.
Obviously, you know banking here and in America incredibly well. London as a financial centre versus New York, back when you were CEO of Barclays, was it neck and neck, or was that a bit generous to London? Where is it now? And what's the one thing, if there was one magic wand aspect, that we should be doing here in London?
Well, listen, I certainly thought in the years I was here with Barclays from 1996 to 2012 that London was gaining huge traction. The single currency was coming, the position of London in the financial center, the number of CEOs and businesses that wanted to list here, it was really had momentum. But if we're being honest, and we compare and contrast the banks in the UK and the regulation around those banks in the UK, and you compare and contrast to the US banks over the same period, 2008 to today, or European banks like Santander, then the return on capital has been much lower. The profitability has been much lower. Mm-hmm. The employment has been lower. They're paying fewer taxes. And so the success of the US banks in that period has been really good for the economy. It's been really good in terms of the taxes they pay. It's been really good in terms of employment. And we're getting to see a bit of momentum now in the support of the banks here in the UK as being a real engine of the economy. I think Venkat's doing a terrific job as the CEO of Barclays, for example. And I think all the banks are gaining some momentum. And I just think that this country should recognize how important those banks are and the banking industry is to driving economic growth, taxes, pensions, employment, all those positive things. So I would be positive and say we saw a very tough period from 2008 for a while. I think we're gaining some momentum now, and I would be very supportive of it.
Bob, we really appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
Bob Diamond, the head of Atlas Merchant, former CEO of Barclays.
Absolutely, yeah, fascinating interview, particularly those comments from Rachel Reeves as well. Gareth Southgate, of course, former England manager, helped fans dream again, and lots of people have been talking to him about his views on leadership, on unity, and of course the World Cup as well. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has been chatting to him.
Our players now, a lot of our players are dual nationality. That could be their family's got a background in Ireland, it could be a family background in Nigeria. They're hugely passionate about playing for England, and equally they're passionate about their family heritage. And that's going to be the case more and more in the world because it's easier to travel, it's easier for our kids to go and live abroad at some point. So the world is more transient, and I think we are wrestling with that a little bit. What was our national identity 50, 60 years ago was probably a lot clearer. But it doesn't mean people are less passionate about being English. I know what that means to me, being English, being British. And I do think we often highlight the disunity more. There's more noise around that, but I think there's quietly more unity than people might think.
I love what Gareth Southgate is doing now, and obviously he's unbelievably well placed for doing this. And I also still always think back to what he went through just to get to being England manager, and so he really knows kind of all sides of what's needed for leadership. He's had to be the recipient of leaders getting him through tough times. He's become that leader himself and reflecting on it now.
Yeah, you should check out the full interview, by the way, with Rob Harris. Really worth watch on the Sky News website, on YouTube as well, I should say. Lots more coming up. We're, of course, discussing the big win in New York City. They've got a new mayor.
Zohran Mamdani, the youngest mayor for over 100 years, with turnout higher than we've seen since 1969. So we'll be talking about the implications of that, as well as what it means for politics here and that new curriculum review here.
Yeah, big sweeping changes to curriculums for kids as well. All coming up in just a few moments' time. See you then.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the polls affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
A very good morning to you. It's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Morning from me as well. We've got lots of breaking news for you, so let's get straight to it.
Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor in a big night for the Democrats in the US.
Against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
At least 7 people are dead after a UPS cargo plane crashed moments after taking off from an airport in Kentucky.
Lessons in how to spot fake news as schools add AI to the curriculum in the biggest shake-up in a decade.
Well, later this hour, we're going to be asking the Conservatives what they think about those changes.
And it's bonfire night, but a warning for those going to fireworks about a rise in the number of kids getting burnt. We'll be talking to the chair of the famous bonfire night in Lewis.
Hello, welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Now, it was a big night for American politics. The Democrat Zoran Mamdani has won the race to be New York City's next mayor. He's Muslim, he's left-wing, and he says he has 4 words for Donald Trump: turn the volume up.
Well, the Democrats also won governor's races in New Jersey and Virginia. So is this a sign of the first big fight back against Donald Trump? Lots to talk about, and we'll be discussing it more detail in a moment. But first, here is our James Matthews with all of the details from New York.
This is a show Donald Trump didn't want to see, starring Zoran Mamdani. A supporting cast counted Democrats who won electoral contests across America.
You have dared to reach for something greater. Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands.
Thank you for riding the Staten Island ferry.
Mamdani's journey took him from unknown to unstoppable. He is the rising star with a new take on New York and on Democratic Party politics. In a 3-way race, Mamdani flew as the progressive Democrat, promising to tax the rich to cut costs for the rest.
But I think we need a generational change in politics, and I think that Mamdani will help usher this generational change.
I think it's nice to hear that, things will be free or things will happen, but it's not only him that can make these decisions.
We can't go any more left with the communism. That can't be allowed in New York City.
Could the Mamdani effect that cemented success here do the same for Democrats nationwide? They are a party seeking an identity and a plan for tackling Trump. The Democratic establishment doesn't think Mamdani's left-wing politics will bite beyond the Big Apple.
Go ahead, make a rap for your nanny.
The Mamdani movement sings from a different song sheet. New York's new mayor used to be a rapper. He called himself Young Cardamom.
The people want to change, we're not content with our Democratic Party.
To Donald Trump, that he should take note that when people unite together, we're going to pick the right person. I don't know what happened before, but now I think everybody has woken up.
This was a night when Americans had their say on politics under President Trump. A referendum of sorts on 9 months of his presidency. The results aren't what he would have wanted. Beyond New York, Democrats won governor contests in Virginia and New Jersey. And Californians backed a move to redraw voting districts to increase Democratic House seats. It was a blue wave of sorts. Small, but perhaps significant. James Matthews, Sky News, in Queens, New York.
James with the update there for us. And Sophie, so many things of this jump out, but just to highlight again the scale of Mamdani's victories. The youngest mayor since 1892. He's 34. He's the first Muslim mayor. We mentioned that. The first mayor born in Africa. So many factors that, you know, a year ago you just thought there's no chance of this happening. But this is what jumps out to me. This was the victory speech overnight, just as we were coming in. He said, I'm young, I'm an immigrant, I'm a democratic socialist, and I refuse to apologise for any of this. If anything, it shows us that convention holds us back. And that's what jumps out. He's authentic, and he's unapologetically himself. And I think there's a lesson there for the Democratic Party itself, which forced a candidate, Kamala Harris, on its base last year, rather than letting that authenticity come through. And I wonder whether there's a lesson for politicians here too.
Yeah, I'm fascinated, to be honest, by how UK politicians are reacting to this. We have Bridget Phillipson, who was very careful not to say too much. Maybe they don't want to risk kind of upsetting Donald Trump. Wes Streeting, I should say, has actually just tweeted just right now saying that it was an inspirational campaign and victory and there are lessons for progressives the world over. So that's the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, with a very different message. But the person that I want to pick out is someone else, right? This is Zack Palansky, the Green Party leader, who many people think of, I guess, as the kind of British Mamdani, right? He's the kind of swashbuckling left-winger. He's happy to take pot shots at the right and the centre ground as well. He's happy to talk about wealth taxes. We interviewed him earlier on the programme and he is buzzing. Let's just take a listen.
I feel like I'm grinning from ear to ear because, first of all, I think it just feels like a delightful moment where hope has triumphed. And although that's about New York, I think it's also about improving people's lives, both in America, but that's what we need to do right across England and Wales. And I think what Zoran really did was connect with the lives of ordinary people, mobilise young people, and it wasn't just about social media. I think that sometimes it becomes about the communication style. He's undoubtedly an incredible communicator, but actually I think it was about the policies. It was a relentless focus on inequality, and that's exactly what we're going to do here.
And look, you can see, you know, the reason that he's so excited, part of the reason is because he can see, you know, a trajectory for himself as well. He just told me in that interview that 30 to 40 Green MPs at the next election was unambitious as a target, and they're revising it as we speak. It's interesting.
It's so interesting, and look, it's really, he focused there on the inequality. That was central to Mamdani's campaign, cost of living, again, which, by the way, I just point out, is really, it's not a problem of left or right governments, because obviously the incumbent in the US and the UK is from different sides. It's a problem for the incumbent, and it gives a space for the populists to focus on it. And actually Trump focused on it a year ago. You know, inflation is a problem that he wanted to solve. He hasn't solved it yet, and that helped Mamdani come through. Do you know what, another thing I just watched in that clip back, and it was such a good interview, it'll be on the Ridge and Frost YouTube channel if it's not already. We said earlier he's authentic and came across well, answered your questions. He also smiled throughout. It makes a big difference. Honestly, it's sort of infectious, and I thought he came across so well.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, really, really big story, and more coverage, of course, throughout the day. But we do have a bit more news from the US to bring you as well, because at least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane, it was a UPS cargo plane, as in the kind of delivery service, crashed near an airport in Kentucky.
Well, the images are really quite striking. They show a huge fireball erupting because it had only just taken off. It was still very heavy, very laden with fuel. And some of those pictures are in this report from our David Blevins.
A disaster in motion. Flames emerging from an aircraft moments before takeoff.
I think it's gonna crash, bro.
Eyewitnesses looking on in horror as it exploded.
Holy
The smoke billowing into the sky, signaling disaster in Kentucky.
At approximately 5:14 p.m. Eastern Time tonight, UPS Flight 2976 from Louisville, Kentucky to Honolulu, Hawaii, an MD-11 with 3 crew members on board was involved in a catastrophic crash here in Louisville, adjacent to our airport.
The debris was scattered over a mile. There had been no harmful cargo on board, but fumes filled the air. The plane laden with fuel for the 4,500-mile journey.
This was a UPS plane that was taking off, getting ready to go all the way to Honolulu, Hawaii. So we're talking about over 250,000 gallons of jet fuel that was on that plane. So we're talking about a very, very dangerous situation.
Authorities said they expected the number of dead, injured and missing to rise. At least 2 buildings were impacted, one of them a petrol recycling plant.
We're still going door to door in the area to make sure that every business, every facility, and there's a couple private residences, everybody's accounted for.
The shelter-in-place order initially extended to 5 miles north of the crash site. At Muhammad Ali International Airport, they grounded all flights, staff struggling to comprehend the tragedy.
My heart is with the families, all the community members who work for UPS, the folks who work at the airport and are there every day and are already under so much strain because of the government shutdown.
With no federal budget agreed, air traffic controllers are among those not being paid. That's led to a shortage of them in places and added to concerns about aviation safety. Air accident investigators have the grim task of ascertaining what went wrong on this flight. But these images will rekindle fears that America's skies aren't as safe as they should be. David Blevins, Sky News in Washington.
Really striking pictures, those. Now, kids in England will be taught about AI and data science and have lessons in how to spot fake news in what's the biggest schools shake-up in a decade.
So today there's been a really important review into what's taught in schools. It's been published in an attempt to try and modernise the curriculum. We can have a look at some of those changes to the curriculum. So kids in primary school are going to be taught how to spot fake news and misinformation and disinformation. There's also going to be a new reading test in Year 8 and a writing test in Year 6. So the government says that's going to try and spot pupils who need extra support. And they're also looking at a new qualification for 16 and 18-year-olds in AI and data science.
Well, Anjum's here to discuss this more with us. And Anjum, how big a shift is this? Because actually, I think over the course of the morning, we've had slightly different answers on this when we were talking to the professor who I think led some of this. Is this a massive shift or a sort of extra step of modernisation?
I think there's definitely some tweaks that have been made. I think the ideas around technology and AI and data science, that's all very innovative, incredibly new and fresh. But some of the things around testing and assessments, I think it's more of the same. So where we've had curriculums where we've got SATs at Key Stage 1 and 2, that seems to be kind of supplemented now with this new assessment for writing in Year 6. So in addition to the SATs, students will then have this writing assessment to spot possibly weaknesses or where support is needed. And then we've got this new blanket statutory requirement, this Year 8 reading test, which is new and another exam. And although on one hand, they're saying that they're going to look at reducing exam time in public examinations like GCSEs. They're looking at a reduction of maybe 2.5 or 3 hours because we know that there are so many hours spent in exams for 15 and 16-year-olds. They've introduced another layer of examination. So there seems to be somewhat of a contradiction there when it comes to looking at assessment in the journey of education.
And Angela, I'm so interested in your own experience, right? Because you used to be a teacher, so you know what the reality, I guess, of school pressures. How do you think this is going to go down, and is it easy to implement it?
I think in theory, I think these are fantastic ideas, especially around the innovation and technology and AI and equipping children with those skills that they need to be able to interact with technology and the internet in particular. But there's not much discussion about the resourcing and funding and the implementation strategies that are going to come to support this new innovation. Where are the teachers that are going to teach the data and AI at post-16 levels? And where are the kind of trainings and supports and resources for schools to be able to implement these changes? I've been in meetings where we've talked about how we're going to afford paper and glue. So that's a long way removed from actually looking at this kind of huge renovation and innovation in education.
If you hear like Bridget Phillipson talk about the importance of music lessons, for example, it's like, well, you know, where's the money from to make that happen, right?
Exactly.
I love the financial history stuff. I think that could be great. Can you, setting Anjum off on a task for a weekend, it'd be great to get the curriculum and what's going to be taught about how to spot fake news. I'd love to see that. I mean, I know it's really targeted at primary school kids, but I bet we can take some.
Do we all need it?
Exactly. It's true.
Do. I'm genuinely interested. If and when they publish that, it'd be good to go through it.
Keep you posted.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you on.
Anjum, great stuff.
Now, the issue of worklessness is a really big one. So that's a number of people who are out of work because of sickness. And Tamara is here to tell us more, our political correspondent. What's going on?
So the government commissioned a review by Charlie Mayfield, who's former chair of John Lewis, into people who are economically inactive, and there are a lot of them. 1 in 5 people of working age is not working, and 3 million of them are off sick. There's been a huge rise in that since the pandemic of 800,000. And not to bamboozle you with numbers, but if that is not addressed, you're looking at an extra 600,000 by the end of the decade. So he's calling this an avoidable crisis, which needs urgent action, because once someone's been out of the workplace for a few months, it becomes increasingly difficult to get them back. And what's of particular concern is so many of these people are young people, aged 16 to 34. Many of them have mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. What to do about this huge problem, which he says is a real drag on the economy? Well, he lays a lot of it at the door of employers and says that they need to try and support people to stay in work. Now, he's doing a pilot with some big companies like British Airways, Tesco, Nando's over 3 years to see how that all goes and whether that can be rolled out more widely. I'm sure you'll get employers who are already concerned about higher taxes and workers' rights legislation thinking this will be an additional cost, and there will be an additional cost to it, certainly in the short run, which could run to potentially billions of pounds, although he is clear that if they do spend this money, it will pay dividends in the future. But this is a crucial part of the puzzle for the government to try and get economic growth going, especially as the UK is really an outlier internationally in seeing sick rates go up like this.
I have a completely different follow-up question, if I may, tomorrow. I'm actually interested in both your views on this. But tomorrow, after yesterday, obviously big speech by Rachel Reeves, everyone kind of interpreting it as saying she's going to put up income tax or going to put up one of the taxes that would be a manifesto breach. And I've read so many different opinion columns on this. If she does that, how politically damaging is it? Is it something that is like, oh, well, you've broken a promise, we can't trust you again? Or some people, admittedly opponents of Labour, saying she would have to resign? I mean, that seems like a big leap, or is it? I mean, it is hugely politically dangerous for her. And I think she knows it. She was asked in an interview yesterday if she would resign, because I think that is people are asking it as a realistic possibility, because an income tax rise has not happened since the 1970s. This would be a huge move. Now, that doesn't mean it's inevitable. It may be that the forecast look a bit better than expected, and she says we're just going to freeze the thresholds for longer, which is sort of effectively a rise, but it isn't a headline rise. Actually raising the rate of income tax would be something that's not happened for decades, a clear breach of what they promised in the manifesto and have notably refused to repeat in recent weeks. And I think they know that this is very, very difficult territory, but they feel they need something big in order to try and fill this black hole once and for all. And that if you raise, say, 10, 15 different taxes, you just upset different groups, as they saw with the farmers, as they saw with the winter fuel allowance. And so doing one big move like this, especially if it's offset potentially, one suggestion is that they cut national insurance. So an employee's take-home pay wouldn't be any less, but you can levy it on more things. But look, it is very, very sticky territory, and I think they've got some big decisions to make. It's going to be fascinating. Yeah, it really will. Good to have you on tomorrow, Karen, there. Still to come this out, we're going to be talking to the chairman of one of the country's biggest and most bonkers, I think it's fair to say, fireworks events, as safety is urged ahead of Bonfire night. And you'll also remember that we started the week talking about how we got our energy with the US ambassador to the UK telling us that he thinks the UK is pursuing the wrong policy by stopping any new drilling for oil and gas in the North Sea. Well, over in America, that shift away from renewables is having a real impact. Our science and technology editor, Tom Clark, has been looking at whether the policy is actually harming Trump's AI plans.
Off the coast of Rhode Island, they're racing to complete one of America's largest renewable energy projects before Donald Trump can pull the plug.
I've always been a Trump supporter because I've always felt that as a fisherman, Trump has had our backs as working men.
Fishermen like Gary Yerman, hired with their boats to support construction, voted for Trump. Then their president ordered work to stop.
From a personal standpoint, I think that I'm puzzled why he did what he did at this juncture of a wind farm that's 80% completed. I don't understand why.
But with Trump and wind, it's complicated. And a particular beef goes all the way back to 2012 when he tried and failed to sue the Scottish government for ruining the view from his golf course in Aberdeenshire. And he's clearly not forgotten.
They're ugly, they don't work, they kill your birds, they're bad for the environment.
Wind is a disaster. It's a very expensive joke, frankly.
The $5 billion Revolution Wind scheme is one of several off America's northeast coast built to fill growing gaps in the power grid.
Just a single rotation of this turbine would generate enough electricity to power the average American household for a year.
But will it? The company behind the project won an injunction allowing construction to continue for now. But Mr. Trump's assault on clean energy is absolute.
This climate change, it's the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the world, in my opinion.
The administration has removed all support for solar, wind and electric vehicles in favour of fossil fuels. But it's doing so as US energy demand is soaring. This is the Mitsubishi Power Factory outside Savannah, Georgia. They make turbines that turn natural gas into electricity for power stations supplying America's grid.
This is one of the world's largest and most efficient gas turbines, and demand for these is skyrocketing as electricity demand in the US is driven upwards by AI and data centres, meaning this factory in Georgia literally can't make them fast enough.
I've been in the industry almost 30 years, and I've never seen the demand be where it's at today.
And as they see it, the Trump administration's pivot towards fossil fuels is the best way to meet rising demand.
We're looking at data centers that are wanting a gigawatt of power. Renewables can't support round-the-clock baseload generation.
With wait times for new gas turbines doubling, some US utilities are struggling to manage demand or looking to polluting coal-fired power plants to meet it. Not only could that slow the pace of AI development, but lock America into fossil fuels for decades. Tom Clark, Sky News.
And more, of course, to come from Tom regarding COP, that big climate summit, over the next couple of days. If you're just heading out, by the way, don't forget, you can listen to our daily podcast, Cheat Sheet. It's 10 minutes long, 5 stories. We do the work, so you don't have to. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, really quick, 10-minute rundown of all the things you need to know. Up next, the Shadow Business Secretary, Andrew Griffith, is going to be here. We'll be chatting to him after the break. See you in a moment.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching Richard Frost. We've got Andrew Griffith here, who is the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary, and all Florida stories to talk to him about this morning, about worklessness, about all kinds of things, the budget. But I did just want to start on the news that we got overnight from New York. Zohran Mamdani, I mean, what a win it was. What do you think it tells us about what people are crying out for? And are there any lessons for the UK?
Look, I think we'll have to unpick that over time. I'm not an expert in US politics. You know, we've got the wonderful city of London, and I think capital cities matter, and they do define a little bit how countries think about themselves. Clearly, there's something in there about the tone of politics, social media. You know, a lot of us just struggle with the right balance between sticking to the facts, acknowledging there's always a balance, and the easier sort of clickbaity, oversimplified arguments. Clearly, look, London's had its own socialist mayor for a long time. I'm not sure that's been hugely good. We've got a housing crisis here. Rents have gone up. The cost of living has gone up, and we've got a lot of issues with crime and policing.
It's interesting you were saying there about the kind of clickbaity, easy answers. Do you see that here then, perhaps with Reform and the Green Party? Are those the ones you're kind of referencing there?
Look, there's a new generation of people in politics, who are more perhaps digitally native.
Yeah.
But there's also a piece, and you might get onto this with the budget, about trust. When trust or faith in mainstream politicians is eroded, then understandably people cast around and look for alternatives. Now, I don't think that's a good thing, but I think the way you fix that is not by changing the tone of the mainstream, but by restoring trust. We had some of our own mistakes in government, Sophie. I think if the Chancellor breaches trust on the absolute central plank of their promise, which wasn't to put up taxes, then that again erodes the level of trust in politics.
And do you think she should have to resign if she does that then?
I think that she should have to resign for lots of reasons, to be honest. I think fundamentally, if she puts up taxes, and we may all be just, it may just be pitch rolling and expectation management, but if she does, what it says, much more so than just the burden of tax, is that she's lost control of the economy. To control the economy, you've got to be able to control public spending. And Labour tried a little bit of welfare reform. They weren't able to deliver that. And so what putting up taxes, despite it being a central manifesto pledge, would say is, I can't do anything else. I can't execute a plan to control public spending.
I'm going to talk to you about welfare in a moment, but I just want to go back to something that you said a little earlier. You acknowledged mistakes that the Conservatives have made in government.
Yeah.
What do you think was your biggest mistake?
Oh, my goodness me. Everyone always asks this. So, look, I think ultimately we lost people's trust. Now, it was a tough time for
But why did you lose people's trust? It's
I
easy
don't-
to say
I
that,
don't
but
think-
what was the mistake? Was
Sophie,
it
I don't think-
immigration? Was it the economy? What do you think?
Look, I don't think there was a single thing. And the COVID and having to lock down an economy and the damage that did to young people was something that
You're not really talking. This is the whole thing that you can't really say. You kind of acknowledge mistakes, but then you're just saying COVID, which is something that you wasn't a mistake. It was something that happened to you.
In fairness, I said there are a number of things.
So what? Give me one example.
COVID was clearly preeminent amongst that, and that's true of any incumbent.
Can you give me you just have the biggest one, but what's the mistake you made?
Look, I mean, clearly, many people would say, and they said to me on the doorstep, the failure to stop the boats and control the level of immigration.
Okay.
Clearly, that was a contributing factor, amongst others, to why people felt that we weren't delivering what we promised.
Can we talk about the Charlie Mayfield report? Because this is really interesting. This is a big review that's been done into worklessness in the UK, and basically it's found that we are an outlier in the people who are claiming sickness benefit and the cost that that's having. And what's your response to that?
Well, it's a big report, and no doubt it will be a good piece of work. We've only seen the headlines, but Charlie's somebody who's been in and around government and done many of these reports. There's been an issue for a while, and it's amplified at the moment, about worklessness. I am worried about generation jobless, young people finding it really hard to get into the workplace. We've got a debate in Parliament this afternoon about the Employment Rights Bill. I think that just goes in the wrong direction. I think we need to give employers more opportunity and reasons to hire young people, and that, without getting into the detail of it, will put up all sorts of barriers and create incentives for them not to take a chance when they're giving young people a job. And then there's a piece of this about welfare reform as well. I think most people who looked at this would acknowledge there is a spectrum from people with very profound conditions that we ought to support to those that are more at the anxious end of the spectrum, where actually being in the workforce, being around other people, getting the confidence that you can get through work is probably the best thing for them rather than being left to moulder on their sofa.
So do you think that there's too many people with mental health issues who are off work, who are claiming...
Yeah, objectively, I mean, the key headline of Charlie Mayfield's report is the number's very, very large. It's 1 million young people, for starters, and that if we don't take action, all of us in politics, then this will continue to grow. So I think we do need to take action. Again, there's not just one thing, but there's an element of making it a little bit harder to get access to welfare for some cases, more for support for others, and definitely looking at the role of employers and making sure you don't have the unintended consequences of a really big red tape bill that says to them, we won't hire people.
Really interesting. And as you say, it is an important point as well, I think, about people who want to work. They may have additional needs or whatever, but they want to get jobs and they can't enter the workplace. I've had families contacting me about that as well. Always good to talk.
Thank you.
We've got lots more still to come. In fact, Fireworks night, of course, we're going to be going to Lewis live after this short break, where they really lean in to Bonfire and Fireworks in a big way. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to Mornings with Ridge and Frost. Your headlines for you. New York has elected its youngest mayor in more than 100 years. Left-leaning Democrat Zohran Mamdani is 34 years old and has become the first Muslim mayor of the city.
At least 7 people have been killed after a cargo plane crashed during takeoff from an airport in the US state of Kentucky. The UPS aircraft was carrying thousands of litres of fuel, which I guess explains those images when it went down near Louisville Airport.
Children are to get lessons in artificial intelligence and how to spot fake news in the biggest schools shake-up in a decade. There are plans to cut GCSE exam times by up to 3 hours per student.
And it is the 5th of November, which means thousands of people are either going to be hosting or attending Bonfire Night celebrations.
But as people do prepare to enjoy the festivities, a warning from a children's charity as new data reveals the number of children seriously injured by fireworks is the highest it's been in over a decade.
Molly Malone has spoken to a young girl who needed a skin graft after she was hit by a firework when she was just 4.
I don't think you stopped eating either whilst we were in hospital.
Rosie May is nearly a teenager. The scar on her neck is from a serious injury when she was just 4 years old. After a firework that went astray hit her while she was watching a display at a friend's house. She needed surgery, spending 5 weeks in hospital. And today, aged 12, she wants to raise awareness of the dangers.
Make sure there's a bucket of sand, bucket of water nearby to stand quite a far distance back in case anything does happen. I don't really like going close to them or being out when it's like bonfire night or sometimes New Year's, because there's quite a few on New Year's.
Bonfire night is supposed to be about fun, gatherings of families and friends. But there have long been warnings about the dangers too. In the build-up to bonfire night, 4 times as many children have been seriously injured this year as a result of fireworks compared to last year. It marks the highest number of serious injuries recorded in the same period in more than a decade. Experts say fireworks at home, rather than larger, more organised events, can pose the biggest risk.
The burn service tends to see those that are to the face and to larger areas of the body, which are sometimes as a consequence of misdirected fireworks. In other words, ones that are being used domestically, who are unfortunately misdirected, fall over, shoot into a crowd, and it's frequently those children that are, frankly, closer to the ground that tend to be in the line of fire.
For Rosie May and her family, well, they want people to enjoy and celebrate fireworks season, but be alert as well.
We do urge that people, if they're going to do them, go to a display. It's really important for people to understand the dangers of fireworks, that they are explosive, they're not toys.
While there's warnings, and there always has been, fireworks can be fun and they can be safe, with care and with caution. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Now, is there anything more annoying than when your phone rings and you look down at the screen and it's an unknown number, thinking it could be important, you pick it up, but in fact it's a junk call, a scam? Well, hopefully the number of those calls we are getting at the moment could be about to collapse, because the UK's biggest mobile networks are coming together with what they think could be a solution.
This is all quite interesting, actually. Fingers crossed. Let's bring in our correspondent, shall we? This is Oliver. What's going on?
So basically at the moment what happens is you'll get a scam call on your mobile phone. Often than not, it'll have a UK number, even though the call centre is based abroad. Now, if you could see that that number was actually a foreign number, research shows that around 3/4 of us, when presented with an unknown foreign number, would probably not pick up that phone call. And that's probably part of the reason why so many people, especially people from the sort of 65+ age group, are getting hit with these fraudulent calls.
Yeah, makes sense, the foreign number thing.
Yeah, the interesting thing as well is presumably there's a big sort of age gap difference in who currently falls for these types of calls. I don't even really feel like I get that many voice calls anymore. Periods.
I get a lot of text messages. I don't know why, my phone number must be on a list, but I got loads of text messages.
Yeah, and the weird texts, including, hi, Mum. I get the, hi, Mum, can you send me some money?
Yeah.
Wrong gender. If they said dad, maybe.
Yeah.
But then I've only got a 6-month-old, so I doubt that would work either. Yeah. But there is just been an explosion in the number of these scams that go on. And we said earlier on, there was like an average of £4,000, the amount of money that people lose. But that's only the average. There are cases where people have had their bank accounts absolutely rinsed from things like this.
Do you know what, Oliver, I was going to make a joke that your child would have to be a child prodigy to be texting already, but actually, kids are kind of getting used to phones pretty early these days. It's a scary side effect of it. Yeah. So which companies are involved? This is being done not by the handset manufacturers, but by the networks?
By the mobile operators and by the government. So it's the big operators, the likes of EE, Vodafone, Sky's involved as well, all trying to bandy together. They've basically got 3 different strands. One of them is to stop these foreign call centres being able to use UK numbers, called spoofing at the minute. They're going to have AI to try to stop the calls reaching our handsets in the first place. And then the other thing is call tracing technology, which will allow them to find out where a call's come from, pass that detail over to the authorities.
Such a great news.
Good luck to them.
Yeah.
It's one of those, everyone hopes it works. Oliver, great stuff. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Now, Gareth Southgate's 8-year tenure as England manager helped fans dream again. We're still dreaming, reaching back-to-back Euro finals and the World Cup semi-final in 2018. Oh, so close, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that success, I should say, did have a bit of backlash to it as well, and most memorably after England lost on penalties to Italy at Wembley in the 2020 Euro final.
Well, speaking to our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, the former England manager, who has a new book out about leadership, said he believes people abusing players are, though, the minority.
Our players now, a lot of our players are dual nationality. That could be their family's got a background in Ireland, it could be a family background in Nigeria. They're hugely passionate about playing for England, and equally they're passionate about their family heritage. And that's going to be the case more and more in the world because it's easier to travel, it's easier for our kids to go and live abroad at some point. So the world is more transient, and I think we are wrestling with that a little bit. What was our national identity 50, 60 years ago was probably a lot clearer. But it doesn't mean people are less passionate about being English. You know, I know what that means to me, being English, being British. And I do think we often highlight the disunity more. You know, there's more noise around that, but I think there's quietly more unity than people might think.
I think it's actually a really important message about there being more unity than people think, because we often focus on the abusive voices. And we do this all on social media as well, or the minority who seem to have a very large megaphone. But, you know, as Gareth was saying, there's actually a vast majority of people who are not like that at all.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And I think he knows this very well and obviously has seen some of the worst bits of the abuse right in front of him, that final and the penalty misses, you know, high profile with Bukayo Saka and Marcus Rashford. So I do think it's very interesting that he's giving that perspective, and well worth watching Rob's full interview on the Sky News website and YouTube channels with Gareth Southgate. Going to stick on some football stuff just briefly, because we're going to talk a little bit now about Trent Alexander-Arnold last night. Of course, the ex-Liverpool player returned to Anfield, where he's now playing for Real Madrid, and the two teams played last night.
You can hear the booing there, can't you? The 27-year-old Trent, he now plays, as we were saying, for Real Madrid. He was booed when he came on as a substitute in the 81st minute of the Champions League game. He'd been with Liverpool since 2004 after joining their youth academy team before deciding to leave on a free transfer, wasn't it, this summer?
Yeah, obviously we're not following on, straight on from the Southgate story. There's nothing sort of malicious in the booing. It's just that he left. I mean, I always find booing sort of rather a pathetic way to get your own back, and highlighted by the fact that they got their own back a much better way.
Yeah,
they won.
They won. Exactly. That's the way to do it.
It's an interesting transfer, though, because he's really missed from the Liverpool team this season, but he's not really playing for Real Madrid. So you do look at it and think, gosh, could it have been a transfer that didn't make most sense for anyone? But it is what it is.
Yeah, the fact as well that he came on the 81st minute there just to get booed. I mean, it's a bit harsh for him, isn't it?
Liverpool, though, stopped the rot with a really, really massive victory last night against Real Madrid.
Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to the author and the winner of the Baillie Gifford Prize, Helen Garner. She's written a diary, and I have to say, she's really gone for it. It's worth sticking around to see what she's got to say.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
You want to talk business? Meet me in the On-Board Lounge. Flying units fly better. Thank you.
Prize recognises the best in non-fiction writing with the motto, all the best stories are true. And Helen Garner is with us. She's the author and winner of said prize.
Thank you so much for being with us, Helen. It's the first time that this award's gone to a collection of diaries, which I find fascinating because I feel like diaries have got this amazing literary heritage. You know, you're thinking of kind of Virginia Woolf. I'm thinking about Bridget, Bridget Jones' diaries, and also Adrian Mole, A Diary of a Wimpy Kid, the kid ones too. How do you feel about diaries being in the spotlight in this way?
Oh, I'm delighted about it. I think my main reason to be delighted is that I think diaries have been given short shrift in literature. I think they are literature. and that because they were often written by women, they used to be dismissed as just sort of verbal sludge that people, lazily wrote down. But in actual fact, to keep a decent diary, it involves as much hard work as writing a full-on book, in my experience anyway. So I'm really glad that it's been recognised. Yeah.
It's a great point about the fact that diaries are associated with women, I have to say. They're also so personal, and your diaries are no different to that. I imagine it's a slightly brutal read for your ex. Would that be fair to say?
Could you say that again? You're sounding very strange to me. The sound is...
It's what people often say to me.
I say it every day.
Would it be a difficult read for your ex?
I don't know. I haven't spoken to him for approximately 25 years. So we won't be speaking to each other again, I imagine. And if you've read the diary, you'll see why.
Talk to us about how the news and the timeline of winning this award kind of reached you and what it meant to you, because this book came out in Australia a decent time before it did here.
Let me see. Well, it was initially published in 3 separate volumes, and then when it was picked up by my UK publisher, they decided to combine it into 3. The 3 books into one big fat one. It's about 800 pages, and I was a bit worried about that. I thought, gosh, this could be a bit off-putting, but in fact, it's turned out to work really well, and. So I can't remember the actual question you asked me. This is about the 7th interview I've done in a row.
You mentioned there about if you read the diaries, you'll see why you don't talk to your ex anymore. And you've also said in a previous interview that you wrote the diaries to survive your marriage. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that, because it's a brutally honest read, right?
I didn't write I write the diaries in order to manage my life, not to survive a particular marriage. But I'm terribly sorry, but I'm finding I can't really hear what you're saying to me. The sound quality is bad, and it's all out of sync. So is it normal?
I'm sorry, I don't know. I'm going to try again. Can you talk a bit more about writing something so personal? How was that?
Well, that's the nature of a diary, and I've been doing it since I was a teenager. Are you asking me? Are you asking me in a very polite way whether I think I should have done it?
No, No. I love the fact you've done it, by the way. I think it's great that you've done it. I just wondered if someone hasn't read your book, I just wondered if you wanted to give a bit of a pitch about, how, a lot of people will relate, I think, to your honesty in this, about being belittled by your other half, about being a woman writing, a fiction that is dismissed, all of those things. I just think it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, well, the diary moves along. It doesn't. The marriage in question that ends in the last third of it. It doesn't actually appear until about halfway through the book. There's actually another marriage in there earlier on. There's a lot of daily life. There's a lot of some people, I'm very pleased to say, find it funny and it makes them laugh out loud, and it's a story of it covers about 20 years of my life, and I think a lot of people like it. People have said to me, this could be my marriage. I find that rather shocking, because it's quite a painful story of a marriage collapsing, starting off with love, but then developing over the years into something painful and destructive. But I've been glad to find that I'm not unique in that way, that the mess that I made of my life, the mess that my life became, is not unique. In fact, it's archetypal. It's something that's happened to gazillions of people in the history of the world.
It's been fascinating to talk, and it's an incredible read as well. So thank you so much for being on the programme this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got some live pictures for you. This is in Paris. Now, you might know the Chinese fast fashion retailer Shein, which has been often linked with whether or not it would publicly list here. And this is the opening of a physical store in Paris. As you can see, people gathering outside. It's been a bit controversial because, of course, sometimes they're criticised for some of their standards in their production, for their environmental standards, but also workers' rights standards. And there have been some protests in Paris. There's a live picture of a store that's about to open. On the topic of stores, completely different topic. It's that time of year again where we get the first British commercials. The John Lewis Christmas ad is kind of quite an iconic moment, isn't it?
It's iconic. It's early, though.
It is early. So it's coming out 10 days earlier than it did this time last year. We're going to start playing it whilst we're talking. And this one is sort of central theme is, we'll see the sort of picture here of the son looking at his dad. And the central theme when you get to the end of it is if you can't find the words to say what you want to say, find the gift instead. And it's rather a sweet ad. We can hear some of the music from it. Earlier and earlier and earlier. They're getting earlier and earlier, these ads. And I think it is because retailers, of which John Lewis obviously has online as well, but physical retailers are having to compete more and more with all the online discounts. And most notably, they have to be before Black Friday, which is always at the end of November now, and all those online discounts.
Yeah, it just shows the pressure, doesn't it, I guess, on those high streets. I think this is a little bit of it's nostalgic in some ways. You can see that the son, when he was a baby, but it's a little bit depressing too. The boy buys his dad a record to remind him of those days when he used to go clubbing too, like implying that he's too old and past it to do it anymore.
I know. Well, I thought it was. You thought it was. I thought it was quite moving. It was that sort of father and son aspect that I quite liked of it. Anyway, enough of that. We are out of time here, by the way. Up next, Gareth Barlow is going to be coming to you live from this studio. There's PMQs later. David Lammy standing in for the Prime Minister, who's travelling, so lots more still to come here on Sky News. Don't go anywhere.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.